Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
What up? How we doing? How are things?
We're just another day.
Just a day. It was a heck of a sports weekend.
Lot going on.
Man.
Lot going on.
Trying to keep up.
That intro could have been like 5 minutes easy.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised you didn't. 2 minute, man. What's up? What
Surprise,
happened?
surprise.
What happened?
Well, I mean,
You got to do what you got to do.
Surprise.
You got to do what you got to do.
Unbelievable circus going on here.
Yeah, we've got almost an entire College World Series field set. Almost.
Yeah.
Got one left.
Just one.
That's been a weird super, too.
Yeah, just a couple blowouts.
Yeah, because NC State just beats the doors off of them on Friday.
And then they conceded.
Yeah,
Yes, they basically conceded yesterday.
Then they got beat up pretty good yesterday. You almost saw the same thing with Florida State, where they go 24-4 on Friday and then need extras on Saturday to get everything done.
A little pesky Aces bunch.
Man, that was UConn.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking Evansville because they got
Evansville was
they hung in there for a second against the Vols.
Yeah, they got at least a one win against Tennessee.
I was giving Dirk play-by-play last night. We happened to be in the same place out in Bellevue and at the Leeds Center. And at some point, I figured when I wasn't getting any feedback, he wasn't as interested. Because I think he's gone into like full-fledged coach mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was actually watching all the games,
like scouting it out,
and I was like, I have 10 more minutes of this, and then I'm going to figure out how the Dodgers took the lead.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to figure out. He asked me what time the Celtics Mavs started, right? And I think I said 7:09, and I kind of said it loud because he was a couple seats away from me, and I got the stink eye from a couple people. I don't know if it was because we were going against Gretna or just that I said 7:09 after about 10 seconds later. And he goes, "You sure it's not just 7 or 7:30 or 7:15?" I was like, "Yeah, that's the radio guy in me." But wasn't it supposed to be like 7:09? I just said, I don't know. But I say that sometimes. Hey, how long are you going to be? And I'll say 11 minutes or 9 minutes.
Yeah, well, and whenever they're on ABC, they never start like on the hour, right? It's always got a little offset there because they got to make sure they get their
offset. Quavo.
That's a different thing.
Oh,
was that Migos?
Migos, yeah.
I'm not a huge Migos fan.
Yeah, unless it's Future.
Nah.
You don't like Future?
I don't really.
I think he's pretty fantastic.
He's the best of the bunch.
Yeah.
I'm just not particularly fond, Not my style.
No, I get it.
It's just not for me.
I get it.
No hate. Maybe other people like it.
But it was, just trying to keep up. The cool thing was actually they're like little kids watching games on their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like checking out what's
I'm
going
like,
on.
It's not just me. It's not just me. I probably was the first one in my car last night at like 7:57 too.
Oh, so you got to get out of there.
I had some catching up to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. So 7. I stood by the door. I was like, "Yep, I've been in the car.
Let's roll. Let's."
Yeah, and you hate to be that guy, kind of. I mean, don't you? I guess some parents probably like, "No, Timmy, come on." No, I don't. I try not to be like that, but yeah, I was multitasking pretty good.
Well, you got work to do,
100%, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up, and I was glad I could go get back and get. I couldn't keep up with what was going on in the Florida Clemson game.
Yeah, there was a lot
because I wasn't getting volume.
Yeah, there was a lot going on
because I can't hear in the gym, and I wondered. So, full disclosure, before I even knew what was going on, you know how many times I tried to turn my phone?
What do you mean?
Because I couldn't figure out why I was getting the angle, the camera angle that I was on YouTube TV on my phone.
Yeah,
I'm literally doing it. I'm going. I pulled it away because sometimes the little circuit. Okay, I'm not. It's fine.
It's
what happened to the? All right, so we're not. Like, what are we doing here?
No,
what are we doing here? I can't just tell you that I couldn't.
I
thought my phone screwed up.
I appreciate the struggle. I do. It's just the doing the.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I do, and that's part of why it's funny. Is like I've done that. Like when it hasn't shifted, I'm like, come on, what are you doing?
It was
like you're trying to drive a tiny car. You're like, come on.
It was maddening. And at some point, I wondered if back, it's just like, he's like, man, this would have never happened to me at the Big Ten. I was bullying teams at Michigan. This would never happened to me. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Big Ten Network's cameras always worked.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And Burke kind of low-key loses his mind because I like him. I've had the chance to bump into him quite a bit down at at CHI for the College World Series, and he's a little guy.
Really?
Oh yeah,
that's
so
funny.
Little guy, and they just were not happy. You could just tell things were not going smoothly back in the truck and at the mothership.
Yeah.
But there was some fantastic games. I was joking with you. At 2 different times, a Moore was struggling on the mound, one for spelled differently.
Yeah.
Like John Coffey. Like to drink, but not spelled the same. Where Moore from Kentucky and Moore from Oregon combined for 85 pitches in an inning. And it was the first time in I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm dead serious because I'm not really like this. It just whatever. Not mean-spirited, but I'm like, yeah, that's sports, man. Deal with it. Like, dude, in Oregon, like he couldn't throw a strike. And the bubbles were going bananas. The fan base was going bananas. You could see the sweat and like the impromptu rosacea that was like building in his face. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope he's going to be okay.
Most people just call that blushing. But
bro, he couldn't throw it. It was just weird to watch it unfold simultaneously. And Micah's like, and he asked me at the breakfast table, he's like, what do you think the hardest positions of playing baseball are? And I said, well, in some order, I'm going to say pitching, catching, and shortstop, and however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And that was when the Celtics had pushed it to 13. So we went to it was like 103.89, which by the way was the craziest. I don't know which side of 7 you were on, but what a likely finish. Wink, wink. And then on 7, it's kind of weird. But anyway, I'm like, this is why it's hard pitching. That's why college baseball is extremely topsy-turvy.
Oh yeah.
Right. You just
don't have a lot of guys.
You just never know what you're gonna get on the bump.
Yeah. I generally don't feel, this is going to be shocking. I generally don't have a ton of empathy for.
Oh, I am surprised
for people, especially in sports, because it's like, yeah, like you said, this is sort of what you sign up for, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sign up for these big pressure moments, but there's a look that people get in their like eyes where they're almost it looks like they want to scream, "Someone help me!"
Yeah, like Rhonda.
I don't know that reference.
Help me, Rhonda. Help. You don't know anybody named Rhonda?
I got nothing.
Coach Ravel? No.
Anyway, I got nothing. But you see it. You see this thing in their eyes.
Oh yeah.
Where they look like they just want out of there, and I feel bad for them in that moment. I genuinely do. Where they just look like, please, someone help me, or like, please, someone come get. Like when you're a pitcher, please come get the ball from me. He's like, obviously, I do not have it today, and he's going to keep trying and whatever. But there is a look people get in their eyes when they're at their wits' end and they don't know what else to try or do. And that's when I feel bad.
Yeah. 5th grade, Dodgers, YMCA, struggling in the far northwestern field. And I could not throw a strike. Scott Fullerton had just left the yard on me. I think Bobeta hit a home run off me. And I just couldn't throw strikes. And my dad walked there, 5th grade, man, little stinking mesh nylon hat. I'm not letting you off the hook. Yeah, okay. Can you see these tears? Can you see these tears? No, man. Throw a strike. You came out here jacking around. You're going to figure this out. Okay.
That's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah, we got hammered.
There's no failure in sports.
I just, some things you just remember.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He just wasn't going to let me off the hook. And I actually.
That's one of the like loneliest feelings.
Oh, yeah. Because that's my favorite, right? Just throw a strike.
Yeah.
I'm like, I did. He turned it around.
The
It's still
strikes that
rolling
I
because
did
we have
throw-
a makeshift fence out there.
The strikes that I did throw left in a hurry.
Yeah, Fullerton hit a ball. I'm saying I still don't think it's landed. But anyway, so that's a weird pull too. I don't even know why I just thought of that. But
It's called trauma, DB. That's what
I don't even get it. Like, Micah was watching old school. He was watching Ahmad Rashad interview Shaq, and Shaq was like 18 of 39 from the free throw line. Breeze is like 39 free throw attempts. I'm like, yeah, I wonder at what point, like, are you watching Shaq miss free throws, or Luka Doncic, or anybody for the Mavs for that matter that can't make free throws? Apparently,
everybody for the Mavs.
Yeah, it's
not great.
That's kind of unbelievable. But anyway, I was having some moments. I'm like, get him out.
Yeah.
You know, because until it got to be 8-7, they didn't have anybody in the bullpen.
Yeah. Probably should have had somebody up a little quicker than that.
I'm like, they're gonna let him work because obviously he's legit, and we'll talk to Mike Ferrin about that in a little while when we have him on. But I was shocked.
I don't understand how you're like, if we're in April,
yeah,
you know, and you're like, hey, let's see if this guy can work through it a little bit. There's a difference between that and, hey, we have a lead that keeps us from getting eliminated today, and our guy clearly doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Like, at what point as a coach do you just say, hey, we're pulling the plug today? Because especially in baseball, you have to have that governor of some sort to just be like, hey, it's not there.
So what will A&M do without the bubbles? Or will they try to find ways to get those bubble machines in?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine that's going to be allowed.
Can you get a bubble maker in the clear bag policy?
I mean, if it fits in the little, like, I don't know.
It was
because they have the little like bubble projectile things, right?
Are
maybe
you bringing those in?
I don't know. You're not supposed to bring liquid into soap count. Like, I don't.
That ain't wet.
What are they gonna do without their bubbles?
I don't know. They may not make it.
Oh no, they made it.
No, I mean they may not make it. Like, after that. I know they're gonna be here.
We're only missing one, and that'll happen today at 1 or 2. Whatever time.
You know who's gonna be here though?
Who's that?
Who's gonna pay us a little visit?
Our
old friend.
Kenny.
Hello, friend.
I imagine Trevor's gonna be here.
Oh,
Hello, friend.
I'm sure. Oh, your friend. Look at that. Yeah, that will be interesting.
That's gonna be an awkward reception, I think.
Yeah,
we'll just see where it goes.
He may stay incognito.
Good luck.
Well, I mean, what is he gonna do? Like stand up and take him over? Are they gonna bring him up on the jumbotron? They might.
I would if I was
our local guy. Yeah, our guys, because they run those things.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, they might.
It's not like
I'm sure he'll be inside in one of the boxes.
Oh, we'll find him.
It's kind of weird. We're missing one. We need a bulldog or part of the wolf pack. Which, by the way, has been an amazing series.
You taking wolf packs or bulldogs?
Good question. It's not a vintage NC State team. Georgia rigs. It's Condon's year. I don't know. I'd like to see Georgia, but they are in the SEC, and we have enough of that.
I think I'd rather see Condon here.
Really?
Yeah.
Just get the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. He rakes.
Yeah. Well, it's just more fun for if you're.
Yeah, I forgot your bomb ball guy.
Yeah.
Did you pitch to Caglione?
No.
I was joking with somebody at the.
No, I would not.
At basketball yesterday. Like he's truly. Like he's getting the Barry Bonds treatment of college baseball.
And kind of deserves it. I mean, I can't really argue with it.
So there's 2 things that I can't even take my own advice.
What's that?
Well, one of them is, remember, I'm the guy that asked 2 different national guys, and then I asked you. I said, hey, I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to say this out loud. It's hard for me to explain. Florida has no business being a 3 seed. Probably shouldn't be in the tournament, but they can wind up in Omaha. And they're in Omaha.
Yep.
So nope, didn't. And I knew when I said, well, how's Okie State -2? Like
that one sounded weird to both of us.
Didn't that made no sense? Yeah. But of course, like most things, I let that go by. And the other one is taking a flyer on Drew Holiday to win the conference finals MVP.
Yeah, he's playing pretty good.
Well, he's clearly their MVP right now.
So far,
right?
yeah, through 2 games, he's 100%.
Okay. So
by far their best player so far.
I'm glad I.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was on that too.
The
Now, one thing I do have a chance to get right.
What's that?
Florida Panthers.
Yep.
Florida Panthers look pretty good.
Not bad. You'll take that.
Yeah, but it's
early. It's one game.
Yeah, and you still got to win on the road, so I'll chill for now. That's why I'm not panicking over
Dallas yet.
Sorry ass Mavericks.
They look terrible.
I told you, man.
Their defense was so bad yesterday.
Well, it's not even that, because you should be able to win when you give up 105.
Yes, but everybody except for Luka going like 1 for 17 or
they
whatever.
They can't. Watching that offense sucks.
When they don't make shots, it's hard to watch.
It's like, I don't know.
I think it kind of.
The only good thing so far is it gives Missoula a chance to get behind the mic. He's a funny dude.
He's better behind the mic than he is behind the clipboard. So,
by the way, the crowd in that Panthers game, that was electric. The Florida had that game before it even started.
Dude. And you know what's funny is it didn't play out like that because Edmonton had way more opportunities. I felt like not to go all hockey first segment, but it felt like the Showtime Lakers were getting out on the break in the first 7 minutes on Saturday night. I mean, they were turning the puck over. Edmonton was getting odd man rushes. It was just like it looked like fast breaks, and they couldn't finish.
Yeah,
and none of
the guys could finish it.
I was like, oh shoot, Bobrovsky might be on his game today. He was incredible because. Yeah. I felt like Edmonton was, I don't know, that game didn't seem like they should have gotten beat 3-0. That's for sure.
No, but you get one of those situations where they don't break through early after playing kind of the way they want to, and that can mess with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Like mentally, you're like, okay, and you kind of try and get outside yourself, or it just becomes a confidence thing, right?
Yeah, and the Oilers have ran their record to 2-9 when Draisaitl and
maybe that's
McDavid don't tally a point.
And maybe that's what it was with that game. Edmonton just losing it in the moment there. Letting the moment be bigger than what it was, and they couldn't handle it.
They need a little Eminem.
You got to lose yourself in the moment.
Sing for the moment.
Oh, that's a different one. Yeah.
Yeah. His
Is that Dream On?
Is that Is that?
It's not a remake. It's like a.
What's remix? The term?
Remix.
I don't know. He sampled it and made it his own.
Remax. Oh, that's a real estate thing.
See. Which, by the way, I'm surprised you weren't one of the people. How many thousands did they get at the Lionel Richie deal last night? Practically our whole football staff went.
Really?
Yeah. Planned it on a humbug, having a impromptu staff meeting in February, maybe. I'm dead serious. We sat at the Report Inn at 10:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't even know how it came up. And everybody jumped on it. And I'm like, fudge, man. I barely have a job. I can't afford to go to a concert. Yeah. And apparently everybody, we might be the only 3 people that didn't go.
That's all right.
Selfish.
We were doing other stuff. We were watching sports. That's stuff to do.
Yeah, man. Add Lionel Richie to the thing that I asked you the other day of whose face doesn't look like it used to. So Tom Brady.
Yeah. He's on the list.
Lionel Richie.
Kenny Rogers.
I haven't seen Kenny Rogers.
Dude, Tim Legler.
Oh, I haven't seen him for a minute either. Or maybe I just haven't noticed.
Who am I?
You just gotta.
I'm just watching the watch today to see if my man Hurley winds up in old Hollywood.
I feel like some people just need to embrace the aging process,
I love listening. I've been listening to Coach Hurley and Danny Hurley a lot.
Yeah, me too, Coach.
I know you might be on TV, but just let it happen,
Just his age.
Everybody ages. It's all right.
Yeah. I did a deal for Tony Veland on Friday. He hadn't seen me since, I don't know, whenever. Probably my birthday.
Yeah.
And
was he at the graduation?
Yeah, but apparently the lighting must have been different because the first thing he and Marty said to me was, "That's an awful lot of gray in your beard." I'm like, yeah, this is taking me 50 years to grow. I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed. Like, it's the same as it was last week and the week before.
I was gonna say, is working with me like bringing some extra grays?
Yeah, it's very very, very stressful.
I mean, I'm only 36.
Well, I mean, if you ask the ghostwriters, it is. Wow, that dude sucks. That dude sucks. If I just know one thing: if I'm gonna make up a post under a pen name,
might change the IP address a little bit.
I'd do that. I would. Yeah, I would just do it differently.
Be a little more incognito about it.
Yeah. More like incognito for me.
I don't think I'm allowed to say that.
You say anything once. Apparently.
There's some things you can't say once.
No. I'm gonna let that one ride. So
I will say, listen, if you think we suck, call 888-638-4876.
You won't.
We got time.
No, I don't want to talk to them.
Guy doesn't watch sports.
We
Here's the other thing though. If you're an FSU guy,
yeah,
you guys have that bracket, that top half's already set, right?
Yeah, they got Tennessee, I think. Yeah, that's a tough draw.
Man,
Tennessee's pretty good.
Are you excited?
I'm excited they'll be back. Yeah.
So what are your favorite uniforms? The yellow ones?
I like the gold with the red pinstripes.
What do they call that color?
It's garnet and gold.
Garnet?
Garnet's the red and then gold.
Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a cheap Dijon mustard.
How dare you?
I love mustard. I probably have 6 in my fridge. They're all slightly different.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't know who we'll see.
I know the all maroons are good looking too. The all maroons are good looking.
I just hope Carolina. I don't want them to rock the baby blues with the pinstripe.
You don't like those?
Nah,
I kind of do.
I don't. They look like pajamas.
Getting comfy out there.
They got a sweet one with the dark blue tops, the white pants with the Carolina blue trim.
The dark blue pants are good. Coming up on the show today, as DB said, we're going to talk to Mike Ferrin. He's from MLB Network and Sirius XM College Sports. At 8:43, we're going to talk to Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. And at 9:43, we'll talk to one Stephen M. Sipple from Husker Online. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-City. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's TV. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the show here today. What's up with 40?
I just, when I heard that,
actually kind of growing on me. Did you hear the biblical reference the other day to the question about, and I'm not going to do it justice, but he basically was only comparing folks that he feared to like God. It was weird how he wove it in, and I was like, is he messing with me, or is he just kind of a little different? Because he almost never looks at the camera.
I definitely think he's a little different.
But he totally went Rain Man right there.
Yeah, he really did.
I mean, that was incredible.
The recall and like
that's something I like.
The sequential.
I would do that.
Yeah.
But it would be something that made me mad. Like I'll say, and I've kind of done this on the shows. I was like, well, they did this and then they did this and then they did this. And I'm like, well, what do you expect? And you'll look at me like, you're an idiot. But so many other things happen. So for that to have been his recall.
Yeah.
Like way back in the first quarter, I thought was incredible.
And
he made it seem, so the funniest thing about that is he made it seem like there was this huge difference between 26 and 25.
Yeah. And famously, there's not.
It just was weird. There he goes. It's on ABC again. Shane, you want to do that one more time?
We gave him 325 point quarters and 26 point
Just listen to this. This is Boston's head coach, Joe Mazzulla.
Listen, you got to take a look at, we gave up a 26-point first quarter and then 3 25-point quarters. In the 26-point first quarter, we fouled a 3-point. We messed up the 2 for 1 and fouled a 3-point shooter. For 3 free throws, Luka gets 2 shooting free throws. We give up a transition basket to P.J. Washington. P.J. Washington hits an above the break 3. That's almost 70% of the points there. So that the game was going the way we wanted it to go, outside of the things that we can control.
Go ahead, then, Joe.
It is a little Rain Man-y.
Dude,
I expected him to throw a couple.
I don't mind listening to him. I don't.
So I do.
I think he's got a certain amount of quirk to him that works for them. Because do they ever? Part of what makes it that is it's what we get mad at them for. We want them to be more serious, stay on the gas, have better pressers, act like you care if you blow a 20-point lead. but they're just not like that. Jaylen Brown is pretty cool. Derek White is cool. Jason Tatum is Mr. Chill, and that drives people up the wall. Maybe he's the perfect guy to keep it light for that locker room.
Well, this kind of goes back into the discussion of what we're talking about a little bit last week of like, what do you actually need in terms of
an NBA head coach?
Yeah, of the skill set as an NBA head coach, right? Because you can, and I think many would, like if you're going to make the argument that Phil Jackson is the greatest coach of all time, it's because of his personality management, right? The basketball stuff is fine. It's whatever. Like Tex Winter did most of the triangle stuff. He learned it. He did.
Oh
he did.
Okay.
There's a reason he was on every single staff that Phil ever had. Okay.
Yep.
Like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Phil was some tactical genius. He was fine. He was good enough. But the thing he was special at was people management.
Mm-hmm.
That's like him being able to get 3 good years out of Dennis Rodman is a miracle. Unmatched since the days of yore. Like that just doesn't getting 3 good years at that point in Dennis Rodman's career is, I don't know that we'll ever appreciate enough. Getting Michael Jordan to function with teammates with his personality type is a miracle, right? Getting Scottie Pippen to care enough to end up being good at basketball.
How come you don't give guys like Saban or somebody that kind of caveat? We're hiring Kiffin or Sarkisian or
for what?
Like when they needed to score points to transition into the SEC.
What kind of caveat?
Hiring, like you're gonna knock Phil in his greatness because he had good assistants?
No, I just don't think that's where he was particularly strong.
Oh, okay.
I think most of first of all, with or without the triangle, I don't think the triangles are particularly.
I didn't harp on it though.
That's fine. I'm just saying.
You brought it up.
That's because I don't think he's particularly. When I make an argument against him being the greatest of all time, obviously he's a great head coach.
So you think the triangle offense is why people think Phil Jackson is a great coach?
People bring it up a lot.
Okay.
They do.
I'm just
triangle.
listening.
What he actually is special at?
Not even remotely what I think, because 2 of his superstars talked about how much they hated the offense initially. Kobe hated it, as did Jordan.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I don't know, maybe.
But I don't know, at least the people I talked to listed off as, well, hey, because of the triangle, he got Jordan to share.
Stop talking to those people.
And it's like, no, he got Jordan to share because of
he asked him to share. It wasn't part of.
Yeah, it was the personality management. It was that whole thing. Getting Kobe and Shaq to play nice together for a few years is a miracle. Like all of that stuff is what makes Phil Jackson special. And so you wonder with a Joe Mazzulla, I don't know that he's particularly gifted. I don't know enough about him really at this point, but watching the Celtics, I don't look at them and be like, oh man, that is a super technically savvy.
You know what's funny though? We keep saying that, and all they do is keep beating people.
Yeah, they're really good.
Like,
I don't look at them as anything particularly complicated from a basketball standpoint.
It's just interesting. They win a lot by some pretty big margins, and they're
really good.
They've done it consistently. It's just interesting, and it's not you. I hear it every time when people talk about the Celtics. It dominates sports talk radio. It dominates, sports shows. I don't understand why a team that racks up that many W's constantly gets the yeah, but they have to be. I don't know if I can remember a team that has been this dominant, and they still get the ... I
mean, I have one for you. It's easy. It's not that long ago. It was the first Warriors championship team. Because of the jump shooting and because of how they did it.
See, that's a personal axe.
No, it's not. No,
because they were talented. That was
I know they were talented. I'm not saying they weren't talented, but I'm sitting there and I remember clear as day.
It's a jump shooting league. Why are people knocking jump shots?
Because 10 years ago, I was still hearing you can't win a championship as a jump shooting team. Whether it's Charles Barkley, whether it's Shaq, whether it's any of the TNT crew that everybody loves, whether it's the ESPN guys, or it's Jalen Rose or whoever else. 10 years ago, when they're winning that championship for going through the playoffs for the first time, they're like, can't win with a jump shooting team. It's dumb, especially because the Spurs
I just
literally
the year. I don't know if I ever heard that, but
I mean, you can go back, we can find it.
Oh, I'm sure you could find a guy or two.
That would
kind of like when a guy from Georgia says people picked against us and we harp on them because it was maybe 4 guys, but it doesn't fit our narrative, so we don't let him off the hook.
I mean, you can let him off the hook if you want to, but I remember specifically
Dennis Green.
They are who we thought they were.
We let them off the hook, man.
And then all of a sudden anyway, the narrative changes real quick and people try and go back and get it. But that's not how it
your
was.
Warriors and you're not having it.
No, that's just not how it was. It has nothing to do with being my Warriors. It was a dumb take at the time because the Spurs the year before were a jump shooting team and won the title.
I think people thought that team was pretty good.
They did. There's a difference between thinking they're pretty good and having this thing where you're like, yeah, but this. That's what we're talking about with the Celtics. Really good team. Yeah, but this.
I would now if you'd have said anything but jump shooting, I probably would have given it to you because it was their lack of interior presence. It was in spite of Bogut. Then we had to rationalize why Bogut was instrumental. How much credit should he get? Could you really play with that kind of defensive philosophy? I do remember some of that. I don't remember much of anything about guys making shots, but I don't want to derail your point and get into where the jump shooting was a real thing in 2016, 2017.
No, I'm talking 2014, 2015, the first one.
Back to Missoula was you're not sure about his impact within that locker room?
No, my point was if you're right and that the thing that he brings to the table is being the right presence for kind of this not strange group of guys, but guys that seem to be wired a little bit differently than a lot of other NBA guys, then maybe the fact that maybe he isn't as adept at X's and O's as other coaches, but maybe it doesn't matter because that's not what they need.
That offense, though, is whatever the philosophy is, and I think
effective.
Yeah,
but you got really good players. That helps.
So,
I'm not saying it doesn't matter, right? But a lot of times we have really good players. Getting out of their way is as important as putting them in a structure like that. And maybe that's what Joe Mazzulla is really good at. Something to think about. Coming up next, we'll wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And we've got a lot to get to. One of the things we haven't brought up yet is there was some activity down in Lincoln this weekend. Had some campers down there. A lot of offers flying out.
Man.
A lot of offers flying out. And my guy got a little commitment to the University of Nebraska. Miller North guy.
Was that not bizarre?
It was. I texted you after.
That was absolutely bizarre.
Because we had this whole conversation on Friday.
I
think it was Sauter.
Was Sauter? Yeah, okay. Okay, because I didn't know if that was, because anytime you get a chance to talk about Newberry, it seems like you do. So I don't.
Any opportunity I get.
So I couldn't remember if that was just us or was Jerome here.
I think it started with him and then we carried it on after he had to go. But
because all I said was, I go,
what's he waiting on?
No, I said, well, did I say? No, that might have been the summation. What I was really wondering about is he's kind of fallen off the discussion radar.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, I was like, it seems like we kind of miss him, like he's overlooked.
Yeah, I think
because we would bring up all these guys in these conversations, and we never brought up Newberry.
Yeah.
Now you always bring up Newberry, but not when we're talking like offers or 2025. Like,
well, because he's had the offer for a while.
He just does. It seems like he doesn't come up a ton.
No, he was flying beneath the radar for sure. He got the offer a while ago, and so I think people are just like, oh, I guess we're just sort of wait and see mode.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, not that I am, obviously I'm biased because he's a Miller North guy, but you kind of have to be really locked in to understand how good he is, because he doesn't, the way Miller North's been the last couple of years, they struggled obviously, and he doesn't have a ton of the either eye-popping stats or the highlight tape isn't necessarily what other guys are, and he doesn't have the like obviously Christian's a much more highly regarded guy at a similar position, and so it's really easy to just kind of miss him. But if you watch Miller North very much over the last couple of years, that kid's really, really good at football.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. We speculated it's like maybe he thinks he's a tight end once he gets some more tape down, or I don't. But
Yeah,
obviously,
I had no idea.
Obviously, he's good to go, and it seems like they're recruiting him as a defensive guy. Not that necessarily matters because they're
going to try to stockpile that position, boy. I tell you,
they'll switch guys on a humbug. But
they just made the offer to, is it Humphrey, the linebacker out of Iowa?
Yep.
Who, gosh, was going sub 1100, 11
in the 100.
Yeah,
it's pretty good for a linebacker.
Yeah, although sure, I don't know about so much about long speed. I care so much about long speed.
They seem to.
Yeah, I mean, see, yes and no. They love times, but I don't know if they would sit down and say, "Hey, we think long speed is a good indicator of a guy playing football." I think it's in addition to, right? You're not going to turn down a fast guy, right?
No, but it seems like they do go out of their way.
I know because they like fast guys. So
Right.
So you talk about a time. My point is, I'm not sure how much long speed equates into being a good football player.
I agree. I don't think there's like a direct translation.
I don't know if there's any,
but apparently there's enough of a translation that they care about it.
Okay.
Like I guess I'm missing the distinction you're making here.
So if a guy runs a time,
yeah.
Okay, you say, hey, he's 10.6 and 100 meters. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know a guy's fast. Mm-hmm. Then the further discussion is, okay, so we know top end speed is really, really high. Mm-hmm. Then the next question, if you really wanted to know how they feel, is, hey, do you think, like, when do you get a chance to see that kind of long speed on the football field? What positions is it specific to? Stuff like that, mm-hmm. right? If I'm an inside or an outside linebacker and I have really good long speed, or I don't have really good long speed, how much of that it plays into the position that I play?
Sure.
So there's a much further discussion, right, is what I'm saying. It's not like because a guy does this, that means this. They do like benchmarks. There's no question mm-hmm. about that. But the real discussion is, what do they mean and why? That's the further thing.
Right. I understand that. But the question
that's you asked me what the distinction was?
Right.
Okay, that's the distinction.
But to me, when you're asking that question, you are trying to answer, how does this translate? And I agree that there's certain places that longer speeds translates up better than others in the football field. Linebacker's probably not one where you care as much about long speed as you do kind of short area quickness and explosiveness and stuff like that as, say, corner or wide receiver, where mm-hmm. you're going to care more about long speed. But on some level, they have to believe that speed translates.
I don't think anybody would tell you to the contrary.
That's all I meant.
Yeah.
I
would respond with that as water's pretty wet.
And we're going to talk to Cynthia Frelund in about an hour. She did this study. We talked about it a little bit last week. She did this study with offensive linemen, their mm-hmm. 40 times, right? The first 10 yards of their 40 times. And it wasn't even about the time so much as their ability to stay in a position during that first 10 meters of the 40. So, maybe there's some of that stuff that they're evaluating as well that we aren't as privy to. I certainly wouldn't shock me if it was. But that part of it's all really interesting to me, because there's a lot of guys that, coach football, recruit football, whatever, don't care about the track times at all. They're like, it's not, you're not wearing pads, it's not game, whatever. A lot of reasons not to care about track speed, but this is obviously an area where this coaching staff feels like they can make some hay.
Yeah. Now, for instance, if you're talking about Tyrell Russell, the kid that they offered out of Ohio, mm-hmm. another fast guy, right? I think they played him at 3 or 4 positions, mm-hmm. In camp, because they'll figure that out. But if you're as a skill guy, I think it's a much easier conversation to have than, like, let's say, a linebacker, mm-hmm. even though you want your linebackers to be able to run. It's like, because I hear it all the time, Christian, they'll say, he's 217 pounds, he's 10,800 meters or mm-hmm. 10,900 meters or whatever. Like, that he can move.
Yeah.
Right. But then it's always a conversation of, well, how do they play? Like unlocking, is a really, really fast guy that they're trying to get to unlock his athleticism.
Who?
Isaac Gifford. Mm. You wouldn't think, like, Isaac Gifford's a guy that is a great tester, mm-hmm. much more athletic than I think.
Always shows up on the field.
Yeah. And the weird thing about him is, even when he tested, so I remember, I think it might have been Cody Manquist. It was somebody that follows high school sports pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And Gifford tested early, and his numbers were like through the roof for a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back and forth like, I can't believe it doesn't get an offer, doesn't get a gray shirt, and the detractors would say, well, not every Nebraska kid, deserves an offer, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I said, I'm just telling you guys, like, he's a much better athlete than you guys understand. I think at that time he was jumping like 33 inches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a fast guy. But so the key, but when you watch him play, the first thing you think of isn't athleticism.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially now, if you see him now,
Mm-hmm.
he is so big and strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know. Like, I mean, he's yoked. And I'm like,
you don't even know how he still moves that well at that size.
Yeah, I'm sure his straight line speed is good. One of the things that I want to see that is going to make him elite,
mm-hmm.
is he still have his change of direction. He was a real good short shuttle guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's explosive. And you can see it when he runs through guys. Like, I watch Coach Coop's cut-ups of short area things. Like, when I have a chance to get to you without you being able to move out of my way,
mm-hmm.
can I close?
Yeah.
And they do like these tackling, these cut-ups of getting guys to the ground in open space or beating a number 2
mm-hmm.
to like get out in the run. Like, that's long speed and I'm not going to harp on the long. I think I made the distinction there, but so much of playing football that's different than track or just getting times
mm-hmm.
is recognition and how you close. There has to be a certain level of oomph. You gotta have some snap to your game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to have without being fast, but you can have it. And here's what I mean to say. You can be fast and not have it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be overly fast and have it. It's breaking down the compartments in terms of how quickly you can recognize and change directions. Like, it's all about the force against the ground thing. So I think as long as you have certain baselines, I think that they can teach you the rest.
Yeah, and I think that there's
now Russell's a guy who's, I think, speed had to really catch them.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Ooh.
And a couple of the like early Texas offers, like Charles and Turner, I think had the track speed had a lot to do with those offers as well. But it seems like more than any other staff I've seen, they seem willing, or they have a conviction that they not only can teach you the football part,
mm-hmm.
it seems like they think to a certain degree they can teach some of the change of direction part
100%.
too. And that's something that most coaches don't want to take a bet on.
They do their things with their plate balance and equality and leg strength, and they measure force against the ground, one leg versus two, and see where the deficiencies are. And
like improving hip mobility and flexion and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
it's incredible. It's truly incredible.
I think of a guy that you probably liked back in the day, not that far back in the day, I guess, but I wonder because we talked about this with Deshaun Singleton, right? Where he didn't necessarily move that well when they got a hold of him. And then all of a sudden he looks like this really good player. Like, that was
another guy that will test off the charts.
That was an issue with, like, you want to go back to like a Taylor Mays from USC, right? Great measurables, great speed, great everything.
Just didn't.
The hips were so tight, never could really change direction the way you wanted them to.
Big Taylor Mays.
It seems like they feel like they've got the secret.
They'll break that up
in order to be able to get guys to do that. Which, if that's true, then basically anything's possible, because that's kind of the key to everything. We've got Mike Ferrin coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by Mike Ferrin. He is part of the MLB Network as well as SiriusXM College Sports. Mike, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Mike, what's up, bud? Long time no talk, man. Where you been all my life?
I know, man. I've been to town the last 3 College World Series, and you never come to see me. I mean, I almost didn't do this interview this morning because I felt like you were just using me now because you never come to hang out.
Well, 2 of the last 3 years, they actually had me working. But now that once I got blackballed, then I can't do the broadcast anymore for Westwood One. So, we'll come hang out. We've got a booth down there now. But I've missed you, man. I never know whether to talk old school, like your neighborhood, the Wire, Baltimore, then the new life of the Diamondbacks and Major League Baseball. Now college. Now I'm back to Major League Baseball. I don't know what I want to talk to you about. Where do you want to start?
I'm ready with anything. I mean, I love that you played the Dave Neal call of Cam Cantarella's catch yesterday, which is going to go down as one of the all-time greats at every level. But man, you want to talk MLB? You want to talk college? I'm ready to go.
All right, let's start there because I was joking. I was watching. My little guy was playing basketball, and I'm watching Florida and Clemson on television. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of known for being a little ridiculous sometimes when it comes to technology, but I was messing with my phone because I couldn't get it to rotate. I felt like something was wrong with the view on my phone, so I turned it a couple times, and I went to see if the little settings thing would allow me to turn. Have you ever been a part of a broadcast where you only have one angle or the cameras were doing what they were doing during the broadcast yesterday? What kind of poise do you think that would take?
It takes a lot. I have been through some similar situations, but generally it's been so like on site for the announcers, it doesn't matter quite as much, right? Because then you just kind of shift into radio announcer mode to some degree. And so like you've got a fallback there because so many games are still done remotely. That's where it really becomes an issue because then you can't track the ball flight. So I've had that happen. I remember once in 2021, we were doing a game remotely. It was a Diamondbacks Giants game and the entire program feed went out. And so like you're at the mercy of your TV monitors. If you're calling it remotely, we didn't have any monitors. So fortunately there is some better data in Major League parks that happens in real time. And they were able to get some sort of a feed up. We were doing the game from Chase Field, even though the team wasn't there. We were actually calling the game off the video board in center field for a while. So, yeah, it happens. It's not ideal, but if you're on site, if your announcer is on site, it's not a problem.
It seemed like Burke was a pro's pro too, but you could tell he was getting pretty frustrated. At what part did you feel like that game was getting out of control from being a civil standpoint?
I mean, I think once the umpires got involved, that was really like, I really think that one of the
issue at second base or like which one started it, do you think?
I think the issue at first base and in ejecting Jack Crichton in the second inning.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden listen, we had warnings the day before in Tallahassee, right? For celebrations and a little bit of chirping. Like, first and foremost, you can't tell players to play with emotion and then penalize them for playing with emotion. And you have to remember that we as the grown-ups are way worse at compartmentalizing that stuff than the players and the kids are. And so like that's a big issue that I think the NCAA has made a critical mistake in trying to get umpires to enforce something that didn't need to be enforced, right? Let them chirp. If there's an issue, like if guys are getting ready to come to blows, fine, get involved. That's when you can start issuing warnings. That's when you start issuing ejections. You penalize people. You don't have to make some sort of proactive decision. And I think it really, I was really going to be ticked off if Alden Mathis had been tossed yesterday for Clemson, because that's what it felt like, because he had spiked the bat.
Yeah.
That's a huge moment, right? Like, you're playing this unbelievably intense game. Your season's on the line. I'm still not quite sure why they ran Jack Leggett.
Because I think they wanted their pound of flesh. They had to get somebody.
No, I don't think. I really don't think that it's that conspiratorial on the umpire's part. I just think that I think that what happens is that they worry about the emotions of the situation getting too big for everybody involved. And they're trying to stop a fight that's not going to happen. That's
kind of what I'm saying, though, right? It's like that was like the sixth thing that could happen. you meet for a while, and I felt like, well, we have to get control of this somehow. And I think Leggett was the easy target at the time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but the whole thing was ridiculous, and it's not the first time it's happened. It's something that continues to go on. I mean, listen, it's happened to Clemson the last 2 years. Like Cam Canarella got run in a regional game for showing emotion, right? And then he got suspended in their biggest game of the year. Like that whole thing, all of that is terrible. Like that's a terrible look for the sport. And like also kind of, Billy Van Rapport, who's the crew chief there, terrific umpire. He's in Omaha every year. But like Billy did not get control of that situation, right? Like you need to have a little bit more feel. You need to let that emotion, the energy, that stuff is part of what makes these events special. And it's part of what makes players rise to the occasion. And so you can't try to litigate that. And I think that's been a big, like forcing the umpires to be on the lookout for celebrations that they feel like could cross a line is something that's been terrible. I mean, it's akin to stationing somebody at every crosswalk searching for jaywalking.
I mean, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong here. Obviously, you consume way more college baseball than, well, mostly anyone that I know. But it is like this wasn't a problem, right? There wasn't like a rash of brawls across the sport. This is just a thing they decided to do because they're like, oh, maybe someday this could be a problem.
I think that's it. I think it's that they were worried about people's feelings getting hurt. And, it came about after we saw teams using props on the field. I mean, that's really when it started, going back to the 22 season when, they had the Hokie Hammer at Virginia Tech, and they had the Daddy Code at Tennessee, and they had all these celebration things, right? Like all this stuff is where it started. And then all of a sudden we get to the tournament, you couldn't use it outside the dugout, right? And then it was, well, these guys are getting too emotional. The bat flips, the bat spikes. James Tibbs had he did basically the mic drop on his third home run the other day. That was awesome. But like those kind of things all of a sudden became, and it's like, it's well-intentioned, right? Like, I don't want to make it sound like this is the fun police. Like they're trying to ensure that it's a good environment for everybody involved. They're just misreading the situation.
When you're taking a look at, and I had to explain this on when the regional pairings came out, and I was saying locally, I'm like, listen, I don't think Florida has any business being a 3 seed, let alone in the field. But I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound weird. I said, they're fully capable of getting to Omaha, let alone winning this regional. It's hard to explain if you don't watch a ton of college baseball. But my point is that I think they were almost getting healthy in the right spots. Now they had the ACL injury in the conference finals, but it just seems like a team that when they get going, and we know about Kevin, like how he manages or coaches, I should say, college, that this team is very capable. What's your level of surprise that they're in Omaha?
I mean, not at all. I mean, I don't hold the same opinion that you did on them being a regional team either. I mean, I think they absolutely were a regional caliber team. Listen, I know they went 13-17 in league, but we're also in an era where not everybody's league schedule is the same. Mm-hmm. And they played the top 5 teams in the country in conference, and nobody else did that. It was the top 5, top 6, and they went 9-9 in those games. So like they basically handled the best teams fine. They had issues in midweeks this year. That's why their record was down, but they still played a difficult schedule and were a really talented team. And I think that's what you saw showed up. I mean, you're right. Like Sully's incredible. In the last 14 men's college World Series, Florida is going to be a part of it 9 times.
Yeah. Like
that's ridiculous, right? Like he's been there 17 years. They've been to Omaha more times than they haven't in that run. Like they are one of the top programs in the country. They're loaded with talent. I was going over some notes last night for the games that I'm doing next week on the radio, and I was like marveling again. It's like one of those things like, but you don't fully appreciate until you start diving in. They were unbelievably young on the mound this year. And sometimes it takes a while for those players to really get it together. And I think you saw it with some of the fits and starts Liam Peterson had.
Coppola was the same way.
Early.
He's getting it going now.
Yeah. So like, and I think McNeely, Luke McNeely, essentially finishing that out. Like that's a freshman that struggled at times. So like, I think that's part of where they were, but that's a super talented team. I'm actually really surprised that their offense wasn't better this year. That's the thing that really shocks me more than anything is, like Colby Shelton had big power numbers, but only hit 258 or something like that. That's surprising because that guy's a really good offensive player. The bottom of their lineup wasn't real strong. So I mean, they had issues overall, but it's certainly not a lack of talent. I mean, Sully is clearly one of the best, if not the best recruiter in the country.
We're talking with Mike Ferrin of MLB Network and Sirius XM. Mike, is there a team? I know we've got 7 of our 8 so far. We'll get the last one, last ticket punch tonight. Is there a team so far that's either qualified or Georgia or NC State that you look at as, when people get to Omaha, we like to find the stories. Who's the most interesting story of the teams that are left?
Ooh, the most interesting story. I mean, I think they all have pretty good storylines. I mean, I think I did a lot of ACC games for ESPN this year, so I've seen that conference a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think North Carolina is really underappreciated nationally. Now they've gotten more attention because of the way the regional and the super regional have gone, right? The Chapel Thrill, as Mike Monaco called it. I think
my favorite
that's team. Yeah, I mean it's great. There's a great line, and man, it was electric there, right? So I think that's a team that is really interesting. I think Florida State being back, this is the first time that Florida State's ever gone to Omaha without Mike Martin involved somehow, either a player, an assistant, or as the head coach. And obviously 11 passed in February, but Link Jarrett getting back there in his second year, the talent they have, I think that's compelling. I think Tennessee is the number 1 team is compelling, right? Like, again, it'll be repeated over and over again, this week and next. The last time the number 1 overall seed won the Men's College World Series was 1999, the first year of the super regional format. So can they do it? I think that's a really compelling storyline as well. And then I think one of the big ones is going to be that it's going to be an all ACC and SEC tournament. And I think there'll be a lot of bad takes around that, but I think you also will see a really high quality of baseball because those 2 conferences were so good this year.
You brought them up unsolicited, so that gives me the green light to talk about them. But as you know, I've been around the Dustin Ackleys and the Harveys and the Wootens and the Andrew Millers and fudge. I go all the way back to Chris Iannetta. But what, in your opinion, what can make this team different than, like, let's say the one that Rodon shut down here in Omaha after them owning them in the regular season? Like, what makes, in your opinion, this Carolina team have a chance to be different?
Their bullpen is terrific, and it's not just one guy. I mean, Matty Matthias, Dalton Pence, Matt Poston, Ben Peterson are probably as quality a quartet of pitchers as you're going to find in the tournament, and they've been unbelievably reliable
Pence
for
has been
North Carolina.
Sick.
So I think, Pence has had a great postseason. But I mean, he's been unreal. But like for most of the year, Matthias was their biggest and best arm, right? So I think that's part of it. They are really good defensively. Vance Honeycutt's going to cover a ton of ground in center field. He may strike out in all but one plate appearance, but that one plate appearance, if the game's on the line, he seems to come through in those. They are deeper offensively, I think, than people realize. They can get after you a bunch of different ways. Casey Cook has had a terrific season adding power. He's their best pure hitter. Parks Harbor is like your classic SEC run producer. I mean, that's basically what he was at Georgia before he transferred to North Carolina. I think Anthony D'Onofrio is a sneaky guy in right field. He has more power than people realize. Really good athlete. He'd play center field on probably any other team in the country. I just think they're really deep, and I think they're really good, both offensively in terms of their approach, and that they're really, really good in the bullpen. And so that's why I think this is a different North Carolina team.
All right, Mike, let's switch gears while we have you for the last few minutes here to Major League Baseball. I know, you know.
By the way, before he gets started, I apologize. No disrespect to Zach Gallen either. I did that intentionally. When I was listening my Tar Heels for you.
I thought you were gonna give me a Daniel Bard at some point. Like, toss him out there. Let's go.
The only
how far back were we gonna go?
Listen, so this is crazy. This is crazy, Mike. But one of the few pictures that I've taken, Matt Harvey was at the CWS a handful of years ago, and I put my headsets down, and I took a picture with him. And he wasn't. I mean, he was getting ready to really be blackballed in the league, in Major League Baseball. But I was like, you know what? That Carolina gear looks great. That's the Dark Knight. I'm going to get a picture. Hold this segment. I had to do it, Mike. I had to do it.
That's great. I love that. That's fantastic.
Speaking of DB's favorite teams, he's always complaining about the Dodgers, but they're
you jerk.
I mean, I'm not
gonna know it.
I'm not wrong. But they're just casually 8 games ahead in their division, you know, just 41-26, not a big deal.
15 years of friendship with him, and the only thing that I ever hear about is how bad the Dodgers are.
Yeah, and they're in first
It's
place
awful to make the playoffs every year.
every time. So, you know, that's fun to hear.
Oh, Lord.
Is there any part of you, just trying to get ahead of this for DB, is there any part of you that thinks there is either a flaw or an underachieving that they've done so far this year? Or
Sure.
Okay, let's hear the argument.
Yeah,
so that
I mean, the back half of their lineup hasn't been very good. Like
Sucks.
the bottom third in particular has been a struggle, and it's a little bit surprising, I think. I mean, some of it is like understandable, right? Like Jason Hayward's missed a ton of time. Gavin Lux missed all of last season, right? Like there's going to be some adjustments with it. So maybe those solutions come internally, but they're not as deep a lineup as they have been in the past. And Teoscar Hernandez had a great series in New York, but he's going to run hot and cold because he's a super aggressive hitter, right? He'll go outside the strike zone a lot. And so when you get him on these heaters, it's great. And it can last for a month. But you've got to, you know, that's somebody that tends to get exposed in postseason series, right? Because of the chase. So I think there's probably some help that needs to come there. They're going to get healthier on the mound here coming up. I'm not really worried about their pitching overall. And the top of the lineup is great. I mean, you've got Hall of Famers in the first 3 spots, no doubt Hall of Famers, and a guy who's trending that way who doesn't get talked about enough in their catcher, Will Smith. And so, like lineup-wise, I think the top of it's really good. I think the back half needs to be addressed. I think like every team, they'll go out and add bullpen help at the deadline. But yeah, I think that to me is Dodger team. The last half of the lineup is super pitchable, especially with Max Muncy out.
I want to go to the East just for a second, and this is in spite of the month that Judge has had, or since May 1. I saw some incredible numbers from him with, I don't know, it's 19 home runs, a 1070 OPS. Like Judge has been unbelievable. But let me go down just a bit to the Blue Jays, because that's a team that I had in the playoffs. They're obviously, I think they've got a couple in a row here. On paper, they look like they should be significantly better, but you keep talking bullpen. What's happened with their rotation when those guys take the bump on the back half? Is it just simply baseball being baseball?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is weird, right? So, like, some of it's injury related in their bullpen. Jordan Romano hasn't been right all year. Eric Swanson, who's their best setup guy, got sent to the minors because he was struggling. Eric Swanson has not had a normal year. I don't know if you know the story, but in spring training, his 4-year-old son was hit by a car and was in critical condition for like a week and a half. And so, like, he has not had a normal year at all, right? Like, this poor guy has had to deal with the emotional strain that comes from that, and then rushing to get ready for a season and all of that. So my guess is that Swanson, after a reset, gets back to being okay on the mound. I think probably he just needs, like, the breather probably is going to help him some. At least I hope so, because, man, that guy's been through a lot. And then, you know, like the rotation, I mean, Gossman started to pitch significantly better. Barrios, the results have been better than what his peripherals have shown, but he's a quality pitcher. Bassett's starting to tune it up. So the issues are offense, which was an issue a year ago, and they didn't really address. You know, they replaced Brandon Belt
like a left-handed stick, or like, what do you mean?
No, I just mean that they didn't address it at all. Like, Brandon Belt and Matt Chapman both left via free agency, and the replacements were Isaiah Canapalepo, who can't hit, and Justin Turner, who hasn't maybe because he's 40. So like I mean, like Justin Turner's been a great hitter in his career and was very good for the Red Sox last year too. But like Justin Turner, like at some point you're going to age out, right? Father Time is undefeated. So I just think that they've done a terrible job of addressing their offensive needs. They went heavy defense a year ago, which I understood because their outfield defense in particular was pretty putrid. But they have not done anything to get better offensively. Now, Vlad's on a heater, and that helps. Bichette's going to be fine. They've made some changes on their infield now, letting Kevin Biggio go. But they really need to find some offense if they're going to get over the top. And right now, they look like on the field the team that they are record-wise, which is a mediocre team that's a game under 500.
Mike, before we let you go here, got to ask you about the Kansas City Royals. They obviously have gotten off to a great start this year. They're kind of one of those teams that are like, oh, they got some young talent. Is this on time, ahead of schedule, kind of what you thought they'd be?
I'm ready to just kind of call them good.
They might just be good.
Yeah, I think they might be good. I mean, I think that's the right. No, I think that's right. I mean, like one of the things we said the first week of the season on our show that was, I wonder if we underestimated the additions of Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo and what it meant to just have two competent starting pitchers in that rotation behind Cole Reagans and what you were hoping for is a bounce back from Brady Singer. I know Wacha's out now, but like when we made off-season predictions, like we whiffed on that because we didn't take that into account. They have the monster in the middle of the lineup in Bobby Witt Jr. Now, there's been a little less consistency around him offensively, and that's something that I think they probably still need to address. And obviously, I think every Royals fan is hoping that they'll add a couple bullpen arms, and I've heard that they're being fairly aggressive on that. But yeah, I think they're good. I think there are some things I feel like in both their performance and in kind of their underlying data that shows that they are, like, I have more faith in them right now than I do in Cleveland. Even though Cleveland's run off to this great start, I think their offense comes back to the pack. I think they are really thin in the rotation.
Me too.
And have weathered the storm fairly well so far. But I think Kansas City's got staying power in that division, and that front office is going to be aggressive if they have a chance to win.
Once a week, I ask, can the Guardian staff hang in there? I promise you, it's unbelievable what they're doing right now.
I keep asking the same question every week too. It's like, how much longer is this going to be? Because they just they have been such a good pitching staff, but they are so much thinner from a depth standpoint. Now, I say that, but Gavin Williams is on his way back, who's going to have a big impact on them, right? Like, that's a guy that will help for sure. But like Ben Lively having the season that he has for Cleveland is like, that's, I don't know. Like, I was in Korea a couple of years ago. He bounced around the minor leagues. He made a handful of starts in Cincinnati last year. Like, the fact that he's gotten the results that he has is pretty miraculous. And, it's a major reason why that they've had the lead in the division from jump.
That's Mike Ferrin. He's part of MLB Network, Sirius XM College Sports. Mike, we appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up with you later this week here in Omaha.
Yeah.
So good, Mike. I appreciate it. I'm going to come say hi, I promise.
But you better. I'm leaving in 50 hours to head to Omaha.
I got you.
Be prepared. I'll be there Wednesday. So
all right,
you can
buddy.
pick me up at the airport.
You
all right, I'll see you later.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we're brought to you by Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to find ways to get involved. Maybe you want to just donate some money directly. They got you covered. Maybe you want to volunteer. They got you covered. Maybe you want to find out what events are coming up for Team Jack Foundation. They've got you covered. It's all at teamjackfoundation.org. Support them. Try and find better treatments for childhood brain cancer and one day a cure. Wanted to get into some Nebraska football news. A notable omission from the roster that was picked up over the weekend. Ethan Nation appears to no longer be a part of the football team.
Yeah, good player. Really good talent. A guy that I think at one point, especially in the early spring, Nebraska was counting on quite a bit to make some impact.
Yeah, that's at a spot where they kind of need some guys, or they need some guys to step up. They've got options, right? What do we say? Options, not answers. A lot of options. Got some things they got to figure out there, and he probably was, well, at least externally, seemed like he was going to be a.
Well, he's another guy that played early as a freshman. That
maybe some people caught up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much caught up. I think some of that is kind of on Ethan.
Okay.
Because he's really, really gifted. But Doss played early. Malachi Coleman played early. Lloyd played early. Princewill, Cam,
Riley,
Ethan, Riley. Like those guys kind of set their own standard.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually harder than it is easier to build on that, in my opinion, because a lot of times, especially at that age, like the level of degree of maturity and being your own benchmark starts to come into play a lot quicker.
Okay.
Right? Once you prove that you can do something at a certain level,
you're not chasing somebody else.
It's about you.
Yeah.
So
which is harder for some people.
Yeah, it's hard for a lot. So the goal is to always be your own benchmark.
That's not a judgment, but it's just harder for some people, especially when you're younger.
The goal is always to be your own benchmark. You want to do something at such a proficient level that it becomes certainly a standard, if not the standard.
Yeah, it's me versus me.
Right. So, but some people, you take a guy like Doss. Like Doss is playing defense most of the time now.
Mm-hmm.
He had the multicolored jersey on in spring, and it's a guy that was a receiver.
This is a guy that not only was a receiver, was the guy they singled out last year before the season as the true freshman that was most ready to play receiver.
Yeah. So
that's the part that's interesting about Doss to me.
So, I mean,
and Nation's kind of in the same boat. He played 7 games last year, mostly on special teams, but he was
their punt returner.
Yeah.
You gotta be pretty talented if you're gonna let that guy go return punts for you.
It's a guy that you figured would be prominently involved in the secondary conversation this year.
The thing that this is so backhanded, but again, as a greater good guy, the thing that I like about what I'm starting to see with Nebraska's culture, whether it's Nation or Fields or any of these guys that, decide, hey, Lincoln,
maybe not for me.
Maybe he's not for me. I'm certainly not going to be dismissive. I'll never be one of those guys, that's, he wasn't good anywhere. Because that's not what this is about. It's not.
No, he's a talented guy.
Super talented.
Eric Fields, super talented guy.
Way talented.
Yeah.
But when the culture starts to define what it is and what it's going to allow and not allow and kind of the standard, like, it's okay. I tell our guys even at the high school level, and I think sometimes, people think I'm being hard, but I do it even with the younger kids too, right? Last handful of years, 3 or 4 years with Micah's team. Listen, football is it's a tough sport. It's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay if it's not for you.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not for you here, right? You have to be unselfish. We platoon a couple of guys. We switch every series. Like, we're trying to get you ready for life. We're just not trying to win this singular championship here. So, I mean,
well,
I'm not going to be dismissive of his talents, but I do like the fact, from the 30,000 foot view, right, that I liked it. I think Nebraska's culture is starting to define itself.
Well, and when you're willing to let talented guys go because they don't fit right.
Yeah.
That's a good sign for me. Obviously, you never
100%.
You never want to see guys leave if everything is right. But I feel like Nebraska for a long time, and I think you've had this conversation about Frost and staff, not as much about guys leaving or staying, but about the guys he brought in the first place in the first couple classes. Right? He was so desperate to bring talented guys to upgrade the talent on the roster that he sacrificed the other stuff. He sacrificed the culture. He sacrificed fit. He sacrificed almost everything else.
We saw it with basketball.
Right? You saw it with Hoiberg. With basketball is you bringing in the most talented guys you can find. You're sacrificing fit. You're sacrificing culture. You're sacrificing the other things that matter in sports. And that almost never works.
Mm-hmm.
I know people keep trying to do it. It almost never works.
I agree.
And so when you say, and I want to clarify this point that you were making, because I think when you say, hey, football is a tough sport, it's not for everybody, that can be, and I don't think you meant it this way, that's why I want to clarify, that can be heard sarcastically, right? Because coaches will use that sometimes.
I don't own that.
I know. That's why I'm clarifying for other people, because I've heard coaches say things like, you're almost challenging their, manhood or whatever, and being like, but it might just not be for them.
Yeah. So number one, you have to. That's fine with the clarity thing. I wouldn't say those things to or around people unless they know
Sure, where you're coming from.
Yeah, and it's not, you don't have to read into it, whether you're 12 or 10, or I would tell Caleb when he was 8. Some things at that particular, it's not your calling. It's not your season. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And if it's not, and I mean your season of life, not just your particular season. Sometimes a no means not yet.
Mhm.
And that I'm good with that. And I'll never, you're not asking me to, but I don't own how that is received, because I trust the fact that the culture in which I'm operating under, when I say those kinds of things, people know where I'm coming from. And I'm not going to be one of those guys unless you ask for clarification, because if I always have to go back and explain what I mean, then I'm either saying it wrong or I'm not being who I'm supposed to be, because the level of standard that goes on when coaches say those kinds of things to you will hopefully be in an environment where you know how those are received. I can't own the level of maybe insecurity or the lack of maturity that may happen once I say those things. But before I do say those things, I will give every opportunity for people to understand what it is that they're dealing with. And I fully believe, because I listen to those press conferences, I kind of get a feel of what that culture is about. Comments like that, those players know how to receive those comments.
Well, and that's kind of my point, right? Is when you've got the culture starting to set in the right way, then you are able to say things that in other circumstances would not be taken the same way.
Yeah.
Right? You're able to say things like, hey, this may not be for you. And it's coming from a place of genuinely caring about that person, not either sort of trying to backhand motivate them or try and get rid of them or whatever. It's be like, hey, like you should probably think about what's best for you in this situation, because I don't know if this is it. Right? That's a difficult conversation to have if you haven't set a lot of groundwork to be able to say things like that.
Yeah.
Like that's not an easy place. You can't start there.
No, I understand. And I hear he was too small and he was too this. I mean, listen, none of those corners are big.
Yeah.
None of them. I mean, Amari Sanders has got some length now, a lot of pressure on Amari now, right? You got time to step up.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah Charles, a lot of pressure. I mean, Charles is 174 pounds.
Yeah, he's not
right?
a big guy. He's a little taller, but he's not big.
Yeah, he's 6'1".
Yeah.
So like those guys,
even like a Bly Hill's not like he's lean dude.
I know.
Long but lean.
Yeah. So it's just.
And then you got Hartzog on the other side, who's short but stocky.
Yeah,
right.
It's kind of what we do when we want to be dismissive of something.
Yeah.
He wasn't this. He wasn't that. How about, you know what? How about like it just wasn't able to function at the level that he needed to for whatever the reason, whether it's athletics or something else, that the University of Nebraska wasn't for him. But don't kid yourself. Like Nebraska's got some work to do in terms of development to get multiple guys ready to play. But it's like Coop said in Texas a couple weeks ago. When you're not getting all these ready-made guys, it's no fun to coach. Right? Like if you pride yourself on development, go get it. Nebraska's not going to bat an eye. They just know that they got to get guys ready.
They got some work to do in the next couple of months. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Cynthia Frelund. She's of the NFL Network. Some discussions about development, I'm sure, will come up with her as well. That's how we'll wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. Cynthia, how are you this morning?
She's there now.
Cynthia, how are you this morning?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Hey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Cynthia, we appreciate you joining us. I wanted to get right into this really interesting conversation that I saw come across my Twitter feed with you last week, talking about this offensive line research that you were doing and some of the critical factors that you guys found that maybe would not be what people would think. We're in pipeline country here with Nebraska. So, like, what were some of the interesting things you took away from that study? Because I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, so the whole point of the study was to help identify some quicker ways to, during the draft and also the pre-draft process, identify who would be more or less likely to be favorable leverage players. So guys who don't lose their leverage in situations like when a pass rusher is coming right at them. So some of the things that I found because it was my master's thesis, I'm a huge nerd. It was a ridiculous topic, but it was a ridiculous topic. However, I was interested in it, so it kept me very much focused and able to code even when I didn't feel like coding anymore. But ultimately, a lot of the things that we found had to do with your ability to keep your center of gravity, or that I found was that you kept your center of gravity better in motion. So one of the things that you can eyeball test if you're not going to do all this advanced math, which I recommend you don't necessarily need to do it, is during the first 10 split of the 40, if guys can keep their thumbs down. So the starting position of the 40 is a weird, one hand down, and you're trying to go as fast as you can. And the guys could trick it if they really wanted to, but if the guys who keep their bums down, so tackles and guards who keep their bums down, and with there's a relationship to their height, but it's within 3 inches. So your index finger is probably about 3 inches long. So the guys who are best at it, the guys who in the league don't become waist benders, they can keep their hips within a 3-inch, from that starting position through the first 10 split of their 40. That's one of the ways that it was actually, to me, that was a very cool way, because we all know the Joe Alts of the world that are very good. They play at premier programs. Joe Alt's great because he's also only 22, so he's still growing. Who knows, right? There's a lot of potential there, but it's really the guys trying in the middle to identify who could be above average as opposed to people who are kind of potentially going to track as below average, right? You want to help sort out the middle, which is the hardest part for anyone to sort ever.
So we've seen this with a lot of other sports where we break down, even we're really getting into the finite stuff of testing numbers. Is football kind of getting to the point where, I liken it to like pitchers. It's not just velocity. It's more spin rate or, exit velocity within how hard you can hit a ball, or something where we're within the numbers. Is football getting to the point now, do you think, Cynthia, with testing where it's not just a 40, it's this particular type of 40. It's not just a standing broad jump. It's this type of standing broad jump where the drills they're finding ways to make them more functional as it relates to long end talent?
I mean, the truth is football's much harder than baseball to really do a lot of, studies and create a lot of value in, because there's 22 moving pieces on every single snap. So that's a lot different than baseball, just by number of variables alone. The thing that, all people, it's funny because sometimes people conflate trying to make your work smarter. You're supposed to work smarter, not, you just don't run really, really fast for no sake, right? Run with a direction and with a purpose. So the point is you're trying to create identifier shortcuts so you don't boil the ocean and you look in the right direction. To me, analytics and all these things, the incremental value, if you can get 10% better, look at all the football games. This is a season where we've had the most games within one score. Yeah. It keeps happening, right? That you could be 10% better, then you're doing a much better job. And same thing with the draft. You often get 7 picks if you're not trading around your draft picks. You get 7 picks. I mean, if you could hit on 4 of them instead of 3, that's better than you were doing before. So the truth is football is never going to it's never going to have as many precise data points as baseball in the same way we think of Moneyball. But what you can do is you can create mental shortcuts so that your eyes and the people who have to make the decisions, instead of looking at 30 different linemen, they can now look at 10. And that's a significant secret. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
We're talking with Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network. So, Cynthia, I'm curious, because we're talking about guys keeping their leverage and stuff like this, and specifically we're talking about offensive linemen. Have you tried to apply any similar parameters to the other side of the line where defensive linemen with their leverages and that type of thing, or did it not kind of apply in the same way?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. One of the things that you can look at, just to keep it simple for the sake of, we're on radio here, so the format, you need like a lot of graphs, but ultimately, guys do have a good recoil, meaning, obviously, for the most part, I mean, look, if you're running unabated to the quarterback, you're going to be totally fine, right? Like if you have no one coming in your way, you should be able to get with him.
Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. But if you're now, if you're matched up with, let's say I'm a defensive end and I'm matched up with a tackle and we make initial contact. Now, if I am like Cam Jordan in his prime, and not to say he's not still in his prime, but like look at Cam Jordan like 3 years ago. He did this really well, the recoil. So he gets that first push, the guy stops him. He finds, maybe it's a spin move or whatever, it doesn't matter, but he finds that second push. The guys who have the most like ability to get velocity and that second push are the most successful. Aaron Donald, it was harder to see with him because interior defenders, just where they line up, you can't see it as well. But guys who are able to handle, it's that second effort that really determines how many pressures that are actually disruptive pressures are going to be kind of on the stat sheet, or maybe they don't even appear on the stat sheet, but are going to be in the quarterback's head for the rest of the game.
I know you're fantastic with numbers, but let me ask you a different way in terms of salary with what Justin Jefferson did last week. Ravi's a San Francisco fan, so I tried to rub it in with him about Ayuk and what to do with Deebo Samuel. Do you try to move him or whatever? But if I'm like T. Higgins or Jamar Chase or in these wide receivers, I know the market kind of got screwed up with Byard and a couple of safeties a handful of years ago. Will the wide receiver market need to recalibrate, or is it what it is?
I mean, let's look at the Vikings in general, because they've done some out of context things. Even like there's always outliers. They were an outlier with that first Kirk Cousins deal, giving him the fully guaranteed contract when no one was doing that. They're doing what they can now, given that they have a rookie quarterback. They can now pay the other key positions a little bit more. And I understand San Francisco's in that same position, except for the fact that they have so many different guys. Yeah. But the reality is the skill players on that team are just it's a laundry list, right? As opposed to Jordan Addison made a good rookie push, but I'm still not ready to be like he's wonderful, right? Like he's no second wide receiver a la 49ers yet, right? And TJ Hawkins is good, but is he I don't know. Like, long story short, he's not George Kittle. So at the end of the day, what they're doing is they were basically, to me, paying him for the opportunity cost of him going elsewhere where he might be able to win. So I don't necessarily, I'm not saying the Vikings are going to be terrible, all is lost, but it's a much tougher division than it was even 3 years ago. And now it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Justin Jefferson to have the kind of ring opportunity at a ring that he did, even a couple of years ago, or if he went to a different team. So I think that while we saw a massive contract and he becomes the highest non-quarterback, sure, there's going to be big wide receiver deals. It's a great year to be a wide receiver. However, you have to remember that not all teams are in the fortunate position of being able to guarantee that kind of money. So what you'll probably and more likely see is that, the upside will be big and more on the level of the average per year, but the guarantee, teams just can't do that if they have a quarterback.
Would you rather be going into this upcoming season? Would you rather be Cortland Sutton or Ayuk? And should I be throwing Lockett into this discussion?
Ayuk. I'd rather be Ayuk. I think Ayuk will be fine. I think, and by the way, CeeDee Lamb, he'll get paid too.
Oh, well, they're a mess. You got to. Sometime we'll bring you back. You got to explain to me how Dallas is going to do this.
I'll try, but they always find a way, right? Like they'll find a way. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but they'll all get paid. Dallas historically doesn't pay until like a little closer to the season beginning, so there's that. But Ayuk will get paid as well. I mean, I know we just saw CMC get extended and 19 a year for 2 more years. But remember, there's ways that contracts work that we never, as outsiders, we just don't get the purview into the voidable years and what's counting for the cap this year versus whatever. But with Brock Purdy being on that deal that he's on and not having like Brandon, I hope we get paid too. I'm not worried about the Niners at all. This is a great year to be a Niners fan.
That's what we love to hear. Cynthia, real quick before we let you go, this wide receiver market, I know like Justin Jefferson, you said they're paying a premium to kind of buy him out of some of his potential ring-winning years. But in general, with the rest of the market that we've seen, are the numbers these wide receivers getting an accurate reflection of the value they bring to a team?
I mean, if the market says so, then I guess you have to believe it. But I would say that right now we're in a little bit of right now tight ends are a bit underpaid. Pass catching tight ends are underpaid, right? But I think that we are seeing this has become a more passive. You never get paid your value when you're doing it, right? Like wide receivers now are getting paid. It's been a top 5 value position forever. I can't remember when it hasn't been, right? But they're getting paid this kind of money right now because over the past few seasons, we've seen a lot of reliance on passing, meaning they just get used more often, right? So that being said, they're probably we'll see something go back to, this year we saw ISO work or duo, a running back running up the A gap, which is like what your high school team does, right?
Bless your heart.
It'll probably, it will, the pendulum swings, but the payment never matches the timing. It always is a little bit lagging. So that's my belief.
Cynthia,
absolutely incredible.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we will catch up again soon because I always feel like we need an extra 10, 20 minutes to talk to you. So hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. You can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And I have to remind you, make sure you get out to the YouTube page or the podcast pages as well. Every once in a while, you get a little extra stuff on the breaks there. Cynthia talked for a little bit extra time on the end of that last break because I didn't give her enough time for the question. That's on me. But really good stuff there. Same thing with Mike Ferrin. You get a little extras when you listen to the podcast. So make sure you subscribe wherever your podcasts, wherever you get those podcasts. But there was an interesting press conference. I know, big press conference guy, Damon Benning over here, that loves listening to those press conferences. And sometimes there's some real gems in there. One came from a kind of an interesting source yesterday in Tony Vitello, because he's let's call him a polarizing figure.
100%
in college baseball.
Yeah, a lot of Omaha baseball fans and Nebraska fans, probably the last experience they had with Vitello was seeing him get run.
Yeah,
in the College World Series.
He revs pretty high. He is a pretty fiery guy, but there's some times where you're like, man, he says some stuff. You're like, I think I might like that guy.
Well.
One of those times happened this weekend. Shane, you have that cut?
I get a pick. I was around my dad a lot. He can't tell me what to do. I don't consider myself, I work for people here, but I'm my own boss when I come here. And for me, success is part group. When our group has success, I consider myself a teammate to these guys. It means I had a level of success. But then there's also the part where I got a job to do and I got to make decisions. And if you were to put all my decisions in a bucket for the weekend, I had more wrong decisions than correct decisions. For instance, Dalton Bargo probably should have pinch hit yesterday. He showed me that with some attitude and some success today. And I'm not so sure he doesn't do it yesterday too if we pinch hit him against Harris, because he wants to go home and he's going home. But you know what, Bargs? Success for me is being a good teammate. And Cal Stark is my guy. That's my guy for a lot of reasons, no doubt. So success for me is what I get to judge. If you're talking about success for this team, the one thing I stated after last season, because I'm in a bathroom crying with just a lot of emotions after we're able to beat Clemson last year, was to show up at work every day and get out of my car excited and to have fun and to be around people that want to be here and be in an environment that you're excited to get to every day. 100% success. Omaha is real fun to go to. If you don't play that well, it ain't that fun. But I don't really give a damn, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, we kind of can pick up where Evansville left off. We're not supposed to win because the number one never wins. So house money. So I'm going to consider this even more of a success this year, but definitely because of that group in particular being the way they are. And then I think 2022 was brought up. We could have won 30 games in 2022. Jared Dickey, who had a phenomenal post on social media today, transformed his entire body after quitting baseball, is a part of one of the best teams, and was a success as an individual, among many other great things that happened about it. Hey, you didn't like the team, so what? They got you talking about college baseball. I can tell you that. To me, that team was a success.
And that question, or that answer, came off of a question of if they had lost to Evansville, right? Would he consider the season a failure? This, just for context here, the last 4 years, including this year at Tennessee, they have gone to 3 College World Series. And the 1 year they didn't go to the College World Series, they made an NCAA Super Regional and were 57-9. Okay,
might have been the best record in baseball that year.
Oh yeah, I'm almost positive. Yeah. Like, it was, they were a wagon. They got beat in the Super Regional. It happens. That's postseason. But so that's to give context to a question of a guy had asked if a season would be a failure if he lost to Evansville, right?
That absolutely matters too.
That it was Evansville.
Well, that, but
or
more,
what?
That they had been so good.
Yes, right. But you become your own benchmark.
Yeah,
you're kind of fighting against yourself.
Yeah,
right. Because, and like we said with players, when you set your own benchmark, whether you're Jaden Doss or Ethan Nation or whoever, it becomes harder to live up to that benchmark because people know what you're capable of. When people don't know what you're capable of, you can surprise them. You can kind of be that.
Why do we think people self-sabotage?
Yeah,
because ultimately, deep down, they don't want to be held accountable all the time.
And I think part of it too is sometimes they don't know if they can. Like, they don't know if they're capable of being that all the time. And that's a hard thing to reckon with, right? And so his success at Tennessee is absolutely a factor in that question. I also think a factor in that question is the fact that it was Evansville. Like,
you think we're having a different conversation if it's North Carolina
or Clemson or whoever,
or
right?
State.
Like, if they're playing a power team in the regional, a team that we're all like, yeah, either one of these teams could make it to Omaha. I don't think we're sitting here asking the questions like, oh, well, if you lose in the Super, is it a failure? He's asking the question because it's Evansville and because it was looked at. We saw the same thing with Creighton a couple years ago when they had a chance to go to the Elite Eight against Princeton. It's like, well, you have to beat Princeton, right? Like, if you lose to Princeton, then all of a sudden a Sweet 16 is a failure, right? No, that's not how it works, right? You made it to a certain point. So did they. Like, you've got an opportunity here, and so do they. You may be more talented if you're Tennessee, absolutely, but I like that it's really easy to get lost in results, right? You can get drowned down by them. Most coaches that last any amount of time in the profession don't allow themselves to do that, or they learn pretty quickly not to. Because there's going to be at one point or another, whether you're Nick Saban or Mike Riley or whoever else in between, there's going to be some point when the results do not go your way. And you're going to have to redefine what success and failure is in order to keep going.
You know, I think it's interesting. You know why I roll my eyes, and I'm sure sometimes fans will do this, or spectators that take in the sport. Like, it would be easy to say, like with that 2022 team, like, or when he said, hey, you know what, we're the number 1 seed. We're playing with house money. Number 1 seed, number 1 overall seeds don't win this thing anyway.
Never win it.
Like, people can roll their eyes, or you can roll your eyes at Nolan Smith by saying, hey, nobody believed in us, when he was at Georgia. Or I just gave another example about like Boston. And sometimes I think, like, we forget because it's our perspective that we just want to look at what we see through our eyes. I never knock when guys come across as having
chip on their shoulder,
or fake motivation or whatever, because it doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't. It doesn't. Like, if the Golden State Warriors were upset over something that Charles Barkley himself said, even though 98% of the NBA, that people that cover the NBA think jump shooting is perfectly fine. If that's what Golden State wants to rally around, rally. If you saying you're playing with house money as the
keeps you loose, go for it.
Do it.
Well,
like, I don't have any.
And to be fair,
I don't care if I'm a coach or I'm a player, however, whatever hat I'm wearing, even if I'm a dad. Like, this, first of all, it's not I'm not knocking the hustle. Like, do what you need to do to be the best version of yourself
However you need to get there mentally. Because it's hard. It's hard to get there.
Man, that's where I was going to land the plane. It is incredibly hard to be good over time and let yourself perform without the fear of not getting it done.
Yeah, without tricking yourself a little bit.
It's
and to be fair, we do hold a double standard, right? And I'm calling myself out.
100% do.
Because what's one of the things that we loved about Michael Jordan in The Last Dance? He just made things up to get himself. He made up this whole thing.
How about Tom Brady?
You just make stuff up. They're literally just making stuff up in their head. They're making pretend slights and what's the good game, Michael, the whatever that story is with I can't remember the guy from the Bullets.
Yeah.
And he goes and like just torches the guy, and he's like 20 years later, he's like, yeah, that never happened. It's like he just makes it up.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have any.
And we love that about Michael because it's Michael, right? Like, oh, that's Jordan. He's this like competitive psycho, whatever. But to be fair, and I do this too, when it's Georgia or when it's somebody else that maybe I don't like as much, I go, oh, of course.
People wonder why that made me mad. I'm like, because if 20 people vote and 4 people didn't pick Georgia to win the national championship and they're the defending champs, and they want to be mad about that, they'd be mad.
Sure.
Like,
if that's what it takes to get you there.
I didn't understand why that was such a point, especially like coming from people that aren't winning.
Yeah.
Like if you're not winning anything, you don't reserve the right to poke fun.
You don't really get a challenge of people's motivations.
At least for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because it matters. Like you'd be mortified if you knew the petty things that we motivated ourselves with in 95 and we knew we were good.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes you need a little bit of something.
Everything made us upset. Everything made us upset. Everything.
Well, you have to.
It's just it's hard.
You don't have to, but it's hard not to.
It's hard to stay motivated and to be good over an extended period of time without challenging yourself daily, especially when you become your own benchmark.
I mean, there's a reason that Tom Brady has memorized the quarterbacks that were taken ahead of him.
Yeah.
Right?
At some point, it's petty. It's petty. Let it go. No, man.
Like 20 years in to a Hall of Fame career, you should probably be able to let go of that list mentally.
Except for those mornings that you have where you've done like your 18th day of the diet and you've changed the way that you've eaten so you can do underwear commercials or whatever. And you're like, man, I need something different today.
Yeah.
Like
you got to dig deep for some motivation.
I don't have any qualms with that.
Because I think it's rarer than we'd like to believe that people are just intrinsically motivated.
Yeah, we take that for granted quite a bit.
Because there is, I mean, I don't know that I know
it's hard
more than a couple people in any walk of life, much less athletics, where you're physically putting yourself through something horrible a lot of the time, like especially when you're training, right? And especially for football, you're putting your body through something just terrible. Mm-hmm. And so there is not a lot of people on this planet in that discipline or any discipline where they get up and they don't need anything extra to get going.
No, 100%. Right? I do. Listen, man, I do it every day. And maybe that's kind of why you hear the passion, like when it's, Georgia or whomever else, because I do it, whether it's, 100 nice things said, 6 criticisms. It's like, all right, well, what's criticism? Any validity to it? All right, I'll show you. Like I do that all the time. Fake guys posting on message boards. Like I do that kinds of stuff all the time. Like when you do something for so long and you want to be great, it's like, all right,
where do I find
what's next?
Yeah.
Like what's next? And it's just hard to apologize for the way that you're wired, but when you're used to competing, and it sometimes it can be petty.
So here's the next question though.
Sorry about that.
I saw Tony Friday.
Yeah.
He had on a skinny belt.
Yeah.
Like super skinny. It's the size of my pinky. I'm like, God, that would look terrible on me. Right? Because I don't have that narrow waist. I'm like, I'm gonna wear that. Dumbest thing ever. But guess what? When it's like, hey, do I want to take this shortcut when I'm walking?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. I'm gonna take the long way.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about a stupid skinny belt. It's the honest to God's truth.
No, I've been there.
Right?
I've been
It's
there.
like I can find.
Where it's like I can't pull that off until I look like this.
I can find just about anything. Keeping the bathroom clean. If I miss 2 shots with balled up Kleenex, I'm like, man, that thing is as big. How am I missing from 2 feet away and I want to keep this thing clean? I'm not missing another shot. Listen, that's too dumb to make up.
I know.
That's too dumb.
That's why it's funny.
How can I not flick a Q-tip? Don't at me, you anti Q-tip people. I go around, not push down. Sometimes I'll flick it with my hand from distance.
One of those.
I'm like, if I can't make 3 in a row, I'm not cleaning my ears again.
You touched it.
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
You know what mine is? This is a dumb one, and it's also very on brand. So it's double-breasted suits. They don't look good on guys that are bigger.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, okay, I want to be able to look good in a double-breasted suit. Like I think it's a nice look.
Yeah.
And it's hard for guys with my body frame to pull off. So it's like, okay, you gotta work towards it to be able to wear the thing you want to wear, right? Does anybody else do I have any reason I have to wear? No. It doesn't matter. It's like I don't have a lot of red carpet events. Like that's not a thing that matters.
How about him? How about his ability to define success?
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
well, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Coach Rule talking about Thomas Fidone.
That's where I was going with this. And when somebody, who was it? Might have been Mr. Nielsen. Whoever tweeted it to me originally, again, reminded me of why I was captivated yesterday. Because I talk about TV. I talk about him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Some way, weird shape or form, like he'll come up. Because for some people, he's off-putting as the head coach. I even asked, going back to when we first started doing college baseball with our national guys, so this is probably 5 weeks ago maybe, and I asked, maybe it was Kyle the first time around, I asked about pressure on Vitello in Tennessee, because he's a guy that I always watch. Like I was in the booth when he got tossed in Omaha, and I wanted to. So then I just started kind of like just paying more attention. Then he got the new deal, and then he threw a couple of bats in the dugout last. Like he's always doing something.
Yeah, he's a fiery guy.
But this right here, this thing was gold.
So can I make a distinction here though? Because I feel like some guys try and do this, where they sort of redefine success, and it comes off as super cheesy and disingenuous. I got that, like I get Dabo vibes when people do that, right? So like Dabo was being asked about the transfer portal, and his response is like, oh, we look at it, we got 35 transfers. They all came from high school. And it's like, that seems disingenuous and cheesy and whatever. And like, you obviously know that's not what people are talking about. So like, you do kind of have to be, I don't know if you have to be careful, but you do have to be genuine about it.
I was going to say,
like
I think the whole thing is about just how authentic you can be.
Yeah. Because when Vitello says what we just heard him say about how he measures success, and how it's like, yeah, you can get to Omaha. If you don't play very well, it's not that much fun. Like that doesn't feel successful.
Remember when I vouched for Rule? Not because I like him, because I believed him. When he said, you just come expecting not to put the ball. If I were Husker fans, just come to a spring game and not expect the ball on the ground. He said it, and I said this real time. He said it tongue in cheek, laughing,
but he's serious.
He's dead dog serious.
Yeah,
because his standard or his frame of reference, that would have been a success.
If I was a Husker fan, I'd just be coming hoping that the ball's not on the ground.
Right.
100%. Well, and like if you're Vitello,
that wasn't an eye roll funny ha moment for me.
No.
And remember, I didn't receive it like that either. I'm like, he's being serious.
Like if you're Vitello, you say that thing about coming to Omaha not playing very well, and it's a funny joke. Like it's funny, but he's also serious.
Yeah.
You know what's not very fun?
They went 2 in the queue and kicked it around a couple years ago with a gaudy team, and it's like,
you know what's not a lot of fun?
You think he doesn't want to try fun this time?
Yeah. You know what's not having a good time in Omaha? Doing that. You know what I'd probably rather do? Lose at home in a super than come all the way out here to play like that.
I didn't really find any of what he was saying funny. I mean, he seems intense. I'm talking about Tony.
He's always like that.
Yeah, I mean, he seems intense.
I thought the line was funny. I thought the Omaha line was funny. I know he wasn't. I know he was serious, but it's still a funny line.
Yeah, he was.
But he's dead serious.
And then how about when he said, and you get to work and it's like you want to have a good time, but he was like still really intense about it. Yeah.
and just the constant. I just don't knock the hustler guys that want to stay on schedule that don't. The people that I gravitate towards are these people that magically find ways to. They don't just blow in the wind. I'm not saying that. You do have to at some point get to the end game of a goal, but they don't make it about the end game.
They don't get to the end game until they're at the end game.
It's just being in love with the process.
Well, and that's how it's really hard to get to the end game if you don't find little successes along the way.
And I come by, it's just weird. It's whether it's wanting to have athletic success or, coming off, if it's, coming off a couple state titles or coming off a couple of whatever, Westside, no, another state, or back-to-back national champs or whatever, right? Or a second marriage. Sometimes it's just like when you're the hunted and you got to find ways to elevate after you, because either talking bad or coming for what you have. I take that, like that stuff. I think I'm glad people take it seriously about the process.
Yeah.
I never laughed at Joel Embiid. I never laughed at the Sixers for saying trust the process. Did I think it was a funny way to always come back to it?
It kind of became like a meme, but like
it allowed them patience to build that roster, though.
Yeah, which they needed plenty of.
Right.
I mean, there's the example from my life, because I haven't competed at the same level as a lot of people, obviously, like Tony Vitello or you or anybody else, right? But it was really important to me internally. There was a number I wanted to get to on my bench press when I was powerlifting, right? There's no reason. There was no reward in it for me except for getting to that number, right? And so along the way, it took me 6 years to go from one number to the 20 pounds heavier, which was the number I wanted to get to. 6 years to make 20 pounds of progress. So like you have to find a lot of little things along the way. And when I finally was able to get over the hump is when I found little measures of success that really worked for me. So I would be like, okay, if I can set a 3-rep max here, that means I got a little stronger. Or if I can set a 4-rep max here, means I got a little stronger. Versus if I don't get to this one number, I haven't reached success, right? And that's a thing that obviously doesn't matter. There is an end game, but there's not. Like I'm not going out and playing a game or whatever. This wasn't even in a meet. This was in my basement. But there was a thing that I was like, okay, until I could find ways to measure success differently, I genuinely don't think I ever would have got to where I wanted to be.
Yeah. I listen to that thing over and over again. I'm like, okay, see, he would appreciate the fact that if I want to knock a minute 30 off an average mile walking, see if I can go line to line
a little bit faster.
Just, concrete's poured. You have a block. See if I can get my strides from line to line, or don't let the bottom of your foot drag. Because if I hear the bottom of my foot drag, that means I didn't bend my knees. I didn't get to, I just do. I don't have. I listen to how many times I play this during the break again?
Like 3.
It just being in the moment to find ways to compete. I think.
And I guess
I just don't knock it.
I would say, we kind of talked about the making up your motivation versus having finding little different measures of success. I think I gravitate not that they have to be mutually exclusive, because often they're not, right? But I gravitate more towards hey, internally, let's try and find little measures of success to motivate us rather than let's go find something externally that pisses us off.
Do you find? Yeah, and I get it.
But they're not mutually exclusive.
I get
either,
it. I get it. And one can typically breed a little more long-term sustainability.
Yeah, I think the internal is more sustainable.
But you understand, if Coach Rule says, hey, you know what? We need to win the quarter.
Yeah.
Like win the first quarter.
Yeah. Win the first drive.
Okay.
Win whatever, right? Whatever it is.
I don't those are, and I know sometimes they get the eye roll. But sequentially, with where you're at and what you're trying to build, it just matters. I remember starting out with, we want to be in better shape than everybody we play against.
Well,
then if you're like, okay, now we feel like we're in pretty good shape.
What's the next little
level
success.
of execution, or it just whatever it is. And I've never really been a TV guy until like the last year.
And then you start hearing him talk like this, and you're like, oh, I can vibe with some of that.
Well, I look at how his guys play.
Yeah.
And I always said, whether it was PJ Fleck or Kirk Ferentz or whom, it doesn't matter what we think when they talk to us.
What does this team think when they talk to them?
It's what his team thinks when they hear them speak.
Good stuff there. We will continue with more here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. That was Tennessee head baseball coach Tony Vitello, who had quite the press conference yesterday. He's got, Father's Day here coming up on Sunday.
Varying degrees of success.
He won't,
Maybe it's not your real dad. Maybe it's somebody you just consider a father figure.
I mean, listen, I think being in Cabo on Father's Day, that's a W, right? That's success.
I don't know about that. I've never been to Cabo.
I haven't been to Cabo. I've been to Cancun. That's on the other side of on the other side there, I think.
1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Cancun on 3. That was a funny taunt. That was a good one.
Well, it was the Lakers thing.
Well, no, isn't that what Pat Bev got in trouble for?
I don't know, but I thought it was. I don't know why I thought that was.
I think originally it was a Lakers thing.
Yes,
but
them tapping out in like the playoffs or something.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe it was when Kobe didn't want to play against Phoenix. I don't know. That was great.
But then it was when Beverly
off.
was throwing basketballs at fans. Allegedly, it was because he yelled 1, 2, 3 Cancun or Cancun on 3 or whatever. That's funny. That's a good taunt. I like that.
Dude's probably out of the NBA for the rest of his life.
I mean,
you can't go humming balls at.
No, you really can't.
Maybe
the NBA frowns upon,
especially when your game is just
okay.
Yeah,
mid at best.
Yes, mid.
I'm not a
mid. Speaking of which, did you not mid, but almost midway through June? Have you seen Judge's numbers? I didn't get into it because I didn't want to go all Yankees with Mike Ferrin, but he is whatever Judge is doing is pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's I don't have his numbers off the top of my head. I'm trying to find him here.
Well, it's like I think he's since May 1. I think he's got 18 or 19 home runs. He's got like a 1090 OBS. He's got it's incredible. I saw it last night.
Yeah, I'm trying to find his
when I'm going off memory because it was a graphic that they showed before he hit a yard ball against the Dodgers. But my buddy Dan, he's like glad the Yankees could salvage the series. I was like, man, come on. Right? Like just some gaudy numbers the Yankees are putting up. I told you the 4 inning starts by their pitchers. At one point was 64 out of 64 games. It's just weird. The Phillies.
So Judge since May 1, 36 games.
Yeah.
18 dingers.
Yeah, got that right.
Which is a lot. 41 RBI. 15 doubles. He's hitting
387.
Well, his batting average in June is 539.
What I meant since May 1.
No, I know, but in June,
yeah.
He's played 8 games in June. His batting average is 539.
That's incredible.
His OPS in June is 1859. His OPS in May was almost just shy of 1400. So yeah, it's pretty good.
You can't even throw it. And remember when he got paid? It was he's 30. What is he? 31.
I think it was 31 when he got paid.
Too big, to this, to that.
He's injured all the time. Prone.
Nah, pretty sure you had to pay that guy.
Yeah,
I was just fortunate we got to play that series without Soto.
Yeah, I hope he's batting 398 since the start of
May. It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
ridiculous.
You'll take it. Not having Soto there helps.
I'll take it.
Hopefully that's just inflammation, not anything else in that elbow. You gotta.
Yeah, I know, and it's a good thing.
And I'm not a Yankees fan, but I don't want to see Soto.
You want all the good players playing.
Well, and I mean Soto just is incredible. Like he's better. It's better for baseball if Soto's not on the shelf. So
it's a lot of good baseball teams.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask Ferrin. We ran out of time, and I want to make
the Orioles are 42-22, and they're in second place.
So I was going to ask him, who's the best second place team? Is it the Orioles? Is it the Royals? Or is it the Braves?
I'm probably going to get struck by lightning next rain because I'm going to say this out loud.
Uh-oh.
And I picked them to be in the World Series.
Braves?
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like.
It seems like they should be better than they are.
This is their year.
Yeah, you get those sometimes, right? Or it's just.
But every time
don't click the way they should.
And believe me, they've gone into All-Star break. I think one year they won it or went to the World Series. They were 43-51 at the break or something like that. A couple, 8 games under 500. And so you hate to count them out, but it just the Phillies are so stinking good.
Yeah.
And don't look now. You know who's on top of the AL West?
That's the Mariners.
Unbelievable. The year that I kind of picked to get off of. I couldn't trust Castillo. Like
you were just a year early. You were a year early.
Fudge.
Because you were on them last year.
I know.
You're just a little early.
But the best story in baseball right now has got to be the Milwaukee Brewers, though.
Yeah.
Dude, they lost everybody.
And they just said they had a 7-game winning streak. Just got snapped yesterday.
Yeah. They're
still a couple under, but
8-2 in their last 10. But they're in first place in that division. I get it. You save the jokes. It's not a good division, but fudge, man, you lose your 2 frontline starters, your best closer is on the shelf, and I mean you're being led by Freddie Peralta. So shout out to the Milwaukee Brewers.
Shout out to Freddie. You know what I realized the other day?
What?
So we had this conversation about like grown-ups going by like the Fred versus Freddie or Bill versus Billy or whatever, right? I realized when people misunderstand my name, they think I'm one of those guys.
Like you just should be Rav?
No, like because when they misunderstand my name, they think it's Robbie, like Robbie.
Oh, with B's.
Yeah. So when they misunderstand my name, they think I'm an E guy, and it's like, no, I'm not. I promise.
Just RAVYI.
You know what's funny is in a different job when I used to have to talk to people on the phone every once in a while. Is people would mispronounce my name and they'd be like, "Oh, Robbie, is that ROBBY or ROBBIE?" Because they'd need to like send me something. I would always correct them.
Is it short for anything? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, Ravalicious.
Ravalicious.
It's Fergalicious.
What would Ravi be short for?
I don't know. People always assume Indian names are short for something. It's not. It's just Ravi. Not all of them have 18 letters. It's just Ravi.
He's done it again.
That's all it is. But no, I would always correct people. I'd be like, no, it's not a Y, it's an IE. Every single time of this made up name that is not correct and also not my name. I
don't know. I've heard others like Ravi and Ravi and
you're the only person that says Ravi, Shane. Literally the only person.
And he does it every day. He used to do it forever. Yeah. Hey, would you like to get Ravi to guest co-host?
Yes, that's a big bucket there, boy.
Yeah. What?
That's a big bucket there, boy.
Who are you? So you said you wanted to see Congdon, so I'm sure you're going for Georgia, but that would make 5 SEC.
Yeah,
teams.
I understand the argument to get NC State in there instead, to get a 4-4. I like to try and fight back.
You want the best
SEC
players.
Dominance at all times, but I do want to see the best players.
You don't understand how excited I am to see Carolina but I know heartbreak is coming. Like they've had some great teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen some unbelievable Carolinians come here.
Yeah,
and it hasn't mattered. They had the best 1-2 punch, take the bump one year.
That was Miller and Bard, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think they went 2 in the queue.
Well, they went 2 in the queue one year, and then I think they lost to Oregon State in the final one year with those two.
Yep.
I've had similar experiences with Florida State.
Did you know Gallon was a Carolina guy?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah. They are.
You conveniently left him off the list for Mike Ferrin.
Because of his affinity with the Diamondbacks.
I know.
And I'm not sure if Arizona's supposed to be good or not now.
I thought they were.
I thought they
were gonna be.
I know they're struggling in 500, but
yeah, I thought they were gonna be a little better this year.
Unless you're playing the Rockies, there's nothing easy in the West.
No, the Rockies are bad.
They are.
There's not a ton of easy stuff in the NL.
Wait, so you stayed off a sweep against the White Sox yesterday in extras, didn't you?
No,
I think
they won the first one. They beat their doors in.
So it was a 4-game. It was a 4-game set.
It went Boston, White Sox, Boston.
Boy, that would have been.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it, DB. I don't love it. Not my favorite Red Sox team.
We were losing to the Pirates and the Reds. What are you talking about?
Dude, the Pirates and the Reds are both like 500. At least those are respectable teams. The White Sox are the worst team in baseball.
Reds run a mini heater, too.
The White Sox are the worst team in baseball. That includes the Rockies and Marlins.
Did they get the brooms out on the Cubs, or did the Cubs salvage one?
I don't know.
The Reds.
All I know is not a fan. Not loving it.
It's all right. You're not in last place like you predicted.
Hey, there's still plenty of time. Lots of time. Only 1.5 out of last. They're 12.5 out of first. So we're closer to the bottom than the top.
Let's get to the All-Star break.
Even though they're right in the middle. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We'll wrap up the show coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, and I want to remind you to get out to unionomaha.com to get your tickets for this Thursday's match. Union Omaha will be there, and you've got to get out there because they've got another special thing going on. It's the 2024, it's the first of 2024 Special Olympics Unified Series matches, which will be played directly after the Union Omaha match. Make sure you get out and support not only Union Omaha, but the Special Olympics as well. You can do all that at unionomaha.com. Joining us now is Stephen Mumford Sipple here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. He's from Husker Online. Stephen Sipple, what's going on?
Mumford's good. That's good.
Thank you. I was proud of that one. I thought of that over the weekend. I knew we were going to talk to you.
That's really good, actually. Montgomery, there'll never be anything that tops Montgomery, but Mumford might be number 2 on the list now.
Oh, good. I like the rankings. I'm going to keep an updated rankings on Sipple's favorite middle names.
Yeah, Montgomery's like Alabama. Really rolling.
Hey, Sip, how are you keeping up with all the offers that are coming out of camp? Right? Is it good to see that camps actually mean more? They just like the SEC, man. Nebraska camps just mean more.
15 offers so far.
Yeah.
15 offers since the start of since last week. I mean, since they went to Belton. So in a week, basically. I think I was standing in Belton, Texas at this time last week. And they offered a couple, I think they offered 3 or 4 guys in Belton and Belton, Texas. And that's where it started. But yeah, now the number's 15. I don't know all the names, but I can kind of picture most of them in my head. I didn't see the camps. I didn't go Saturday because it was a writing day for me, but I've seen a lot of the camps so far.
Sip, I wanted to ask you about not an offer that went out, but a commitment that came in over the weekend as well in Pierce Newberry from Millard North. One of the local guys that seemed like kind of flew under the radar a little bit during a lot of this process after he got the initial offer. But from what his comments, it seemed like the Nebraska staff was still pretty excited about getting him into the fold.
Well, he kind of fits their profile, and not every player. Listen, when I say that, because a certain player fits a certain profile doesn't mean they wouldn't ever diverge from it, or you would never have a Malcolm Hartzog on a roster. But
and that's how I feel about when people say, "Oh, he ran fast." It's more to it than that.
It's more, yeah, and it's more than being 6'4". But this staff does, they like 6'4". They like long levers. They like Newberry's speed. They like his versatility. I mean, and I know Matt Rule would say you can't teach 6'4", So yeah, he fits. It's a good fit. It's a good get. I like the class. I like the way it's going. And there's still a lot of exciting parts that could be added to it.
Are you surprised, or do you like, or what do you think about the level of intensity and instruction that they have at these camps? Because it's pretty intense.
Well, it's really intense in that, like, if you impress, you could walk away with a scholarship offer. It's that legit. I mean, the head coaches, they're watching the prospects very intently. I mean, that's what you notice, and it's very evident. I think people understand now that if you go in and impress, there could be a scholarship offer. 15's a pretty big number, right?
Yeah.
You know, that encompasses 25, 26, 27, and probably 28 too. But, you know, those classes. But that's, I mean, I guess on a week ago Monday, if you would have said in a week they'll have offered 15 guys, I would say that's probably a little high. You know, I would maybe said 8 to 10. But 15 is a pretty big number. But I'm at these camps, I see them. There's talent there. There's good players. These guys that are getting offers are good. You know, that quarterback Amina, he can throw it.
Well, they're not afraid to get some young offers out to QBs, are they? You can see what they're at least trying to do with stockpile.
Yeah, I think that you got to a certain extent. I mean, this isn't a new conversation. I can remember talking to Danny Langsdorf, you know, the Nebraska offensive coordinator under Mike Riley, one day after practice, and I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm going out to California to watch an 8th grader." I mean, that conversation's, you know, pretty old. But you know, the one thing though, I mean, you see some 8th graders, you'd never guess that they're an 8th grader. You'd think they're older. So there's advancement there, and I can see why it's happening. Also, God, I hate to say it this way, but there's some truth to it. Quarterback, you can stockpile offers. Just, you miss on one, you go to the next one. I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen, but you know, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can find them, and that it's kind of a position like that. What's really made the biggest impact on me in the last year, and it continues this summer, and what's happening nationally is really interesting. The power programs, the Power 4 programs, let's say, are really emphasizing bigs. And the skill guys, the benefactors in this discussion, and I talked to a Houston Christian coach about this, are the FCS and group of 5s, because they're getting really good skill players.
Well, there's so many now with 7-on-7 and guys being more adept at running and catching, right? Like it's just a lot, guys, there's a lot better.
Right. So what the Power 4 programs do is sometimes just lean on the portal for those guys. You know, let them go to Houston Christian or whatever and get a little bit better, and we'll get them as they get older. But that's kind of what's going on to a certain extent nationally. So I would call it a trend, and it's striking to me it's just hard to find guys that are 6'5", 280, and can run and bend. You know, you just don't see them around that much.
So how long ago was it before it's got to be less than 6-7 years where we stopped talking about getting guys on campus for game day experiences and we ramp up for like camps in the spring? Like, it wasn't that long ago when it was such a big deal that we couldn't or weren't getting guys on campus for game day experiences. Do you remember those days, Sip?
Yeah, I do. And it's really, for me, the conversation in my head, which the timeline for that's different than most people probably, but the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, June is so important now. I mean, that's more important. You know, the game day. So what Nebraska tries to do is recreate the game day phenomenon in June. You know, they take the kids into East Stadium, and there's they do some kind of stuff there. Then they go out on the field and there's videos playing and sound. And I think they do a pretty good job of recreating the game day. But yeah, the game day, that conversation's passé. Well, if we can just get the kids to a game, that'll be the key. Nah, it's not really like that anymore. The calendar has shifted, and it's not as prevalent in the process of trying to woo somebody. It's a much different discussion now.
Sip, is that something you mentioned? It's kind of gone through the whole. Are there still schools, at least that you're aware of, that operate that way, that still because you still see a lot of game day visitors, right? But it seems like Nebraska's gone really out of their way. Is that something, like you said, is it just the calendar? Is it more of, I feel like Rule talks about like, hey, I want you to know what it's really going to be like here, and game days aren't necessarily the best example of that. Like, are there Are there a couple other things that factor here besides just the calendar?
For me, I would say it's mostly the calendar.
Okay.
If the calendar hadn't changed, I think they would still really emphasize the game day.
Okay.
But no, I think it's mostly about visits. You know, the visit dates have changed. Now players are they're making their commitments in June and July. June, July, August, before their senior seasons. The visits the official visits are being taken at, different times, not during seasons as much, not during the autumn as much. So I think it's mostly the calendar. I think I think Nebraska would still emphasize it if it was the right time of year.
Sip, what do you make of you got a chance, you and Sean talked to Coach Coop. He was talking about development down in Texas and DBs and needing to be needed from a development standpoint. How crucial do you think this year is in terms of putting those words into play with such a young secondary, at least on the edges potentially outside of Hill?
Yeah, I mean, of course it's critical. It's what it's all about, really. I mean, you got to get those guys ready to roll. I think they feel, and they feel good about it. I was really interested in what Cooper said about how he prefers kind of to get guys raw. And then when he gets guys who maybe had been taught, he finds himself having to reteach a lot in the way he does it, and the way Nebraska does it. So, but as far as that secondary goes, they have enough veterans. I mean, Tommy Hill's a veteran, obviously Gifford. I think I don't know what you'll do. You guys probably maybe have a better handle on it than me. I did see Singleton yesterday, and he just looks fabulous. I mean,
he's worked his ass off.
Oh God, he looks good. I mean, that's a big safety now. If it's not Singleton, I suppose Hartzog would be in that. I mentioned Gifford. The other corner, I think it's either Jeremiah Charles. Now that's where it gets really interesting, right? I mean, if Jeremiah Charles as a redshirt freshman is your guy, which he could be, or Hartzog. I think it would be either Charles or Hartzog. I don't know how much development Hartzog needs. I mean, you never stop developing and all that, but he's a pretty seasoned guy. Cooper has a good secondary. He has enough back there that they should be solid to very good.
That's Steven Monticello Sipple here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. He's from Husker Online. You can find him there. Sip, we appreciate it as always.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Sip.
We'll be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.